The Naga's Pet by Celeste King.
Book 2 of Nagas of Protheka.
They say misery loves company.
But I can guarantee you, Eroth, the company they keep aren't Nagas.
Shauna's not surprised when the Dark Elves put her up for auction in Nagaland. There isn't much to look forward to for a human in Protheka.
Apart from her bruised and battered heart. But is Kazhir too good to be true?
I'll tell you what isn't too good to be true, Samara. And that's the fact that you can get access to all the juicy details YouTube is too modest to show on worldsofprotheka.com.
Use discount code YouTube30 for 30% off any digital product.
If you enjoy this audiobook, don't forget to like this video or leave a comment and tell us what you think.
Hitting that subscribe button will keep you informed about new and upcoming releases.
Thank you for choosing Celeste King's The Naga's Pet.
Chapter 1. Shayna. Metal bites into my back as I press against the bars of my cage. I keep myself curled up in the back corner, my knees drawn up to protect my body as I huddle away from the bustle going on around me. It's not lost on me how the people around me are going about their day, not even noticing the frail girl in the cage. So are the ways on Protheka, where humans mean so little that I've started to believe I've done something to deserve being locked up in here. My view is mostly blocked by the other vendors here, but I don't bother to look around. I keep my head down, as I always have, and await my fate. I'm no stranger to being sold, and it's obvious that I'm at some kind of market. I've heard snippets from the dark elf merchants that hauled me here, something about another race. I'm not sure exactly where I am, but I think I heard them say Nagaland earlier today. The Naga are little more than a fairy tale in Leondor, so I know very little about them. There are faint hisses in the air, and it piques my interest enough that I lift my head a little. Not enough to give a full view of my face, but enough to see those passing close by. I see the difference immediately. The people at this market look nothing like the dark elves. They have snake hoods around their heads, slit eyes, and a tail. Scales cover the sides of their arms and legs, and their skin and scales are a wide variety of colours. I also notice how none of them look my way. I don't know how prominent humans are in Nagaland, but I'm of no interest to anyone here today. That can't bode well for me. One of the dark elves flings a look back at me, and I cower back into my ball, afraid of his eyes assessing me. "She's useless," he remarks to his friend. "I don't know why we even bothered to bring her along when she's nothing but skin and bones. Who would want that? I wouldn't pay a blanc for her." His companion's voice comes my way, and I can only assume they are both staring at me now. "She's still got holes. She's worth at least 2 blanc, maybe even a rubio." The other one scoffs. "I can bed a zagfur with a rubio." "You can bed a zagfur for nothing," his friend reminds him. "I can screw her for nothing too." They shift, and I hope it's not closer to me. Unfortunately, the scrape of a shoe and the proximity of his voice tells me it is. Maybe I should. Show everyone the merchandise isn't broken. No matter. We've been here for hours, and I am growing tired of waiting. It might be better to just cut our losses soon and head home. I agree. Something brushes against the outer bars of the cage, and it makes my stomach tighten. I think we should make some use of her, though, since we drug her all this way. Use her after the market. I'm still hopeful for a buyer. I'm not. Well, you have something to look forward to then. You can screw her until she breaks for all I care. Then we'll cut our losses. The other one grunts, and fear shoots through me. I know what it means to cut their losses. They'll kill me. If no one buys me, I'll die here today for being worthless. They're not wrong that I am too thin to do much at all. I can't remember when I last ate, and my body can do little more than lie here. I've become so weak. I know that my chances are none, and I am hopeless. No one cares about me, not here or ever. I've always had to fend for myself, and I've done a poor job at it. I have nothing and no one, and I will die alone, worse than the beasts in the forest. I'll die without honour, without fight, without a pack or anyone to care. In fact, I'll probably be left as food for the beasts, and my stomach twists at the meagre worth of my life. I tuck my heels up under my body, trying to make myself even smaller. My eyes are fixed on the cage floor, and I try to block out the noise around me. Letting my mind go blank has become a special talent of mine, made easy by the lack of emotions I can no longer feel. I've been numb for some time, only remembering I'm alive by the random spurts of pain or fear. Otherwise, the abyss I've been drifting through, the emptiness of my soul, and the fog blanketing my mind would be enough to convince me I'm already dead. It's really been a waste. The dark elf starts up again. I thought coming to Nagaland would make us an easy profit, but we've only squandered a day. It's still May. He scoffs. The Naga have proven to be as useless as I've always said. I have no money for the tax to get back into Leondor, and I've sullied my name just by being on this continent. No one has to know we were here. I certainly won't tell anyone that we chose to be around these belly draggers. Disgusting half-breeds, misshapen evolutions. They go back and forth like that, insulting the Naga who have done nothing to these elves. It's like that with dark elves, though. Do nothing, and they'll still find a way to discuss what a piece of hell you are. My energy has been expended just from being awake, and I nestle my head into my arms, hoping to go to sleep. The sun is blistering hot today, especially since this cage has no roof to block it out. There are only bars, letting the sun burn my exposed skin, and I have no option but to endure it. I try to trick my mind into believing the heat feels good. It's better than some winters I've made it through, where the cold was so blistering that I feared I'd lose some fingers and toes. Leondor is so far north, it's often buried in snow. The heat tells me how far south we must have travelled to get to Nagaland. Even though it's the hottest season in Leondor right now, it has never gotten this hot before. Sitting in the direct light only makes the temperature more stifling, and my body doesn't even have the extra moisture to bother sweating to cool me off. Maybe it's finally given up on saving itself. I know I did a long time ago. As my mind starts to settle, my senses go quiet, and I'm able to convince myself that I'm somewhere peaceful for once. The cage isn't so bad, and sleep helps erase the gnawing hunger and impending heat stroke. Instead, I consider it a nice day out, ignoring the fact that it might be my last day. Then, something covers the sun, blanketing me from the intense rays. I sigh without opening my eyes, thinking it to be a cloud. What a blessing for a cloud on such a bright day, one of few I've received in my life. I quickly realise that it is not a cloud that has shielded me, though, when I hear a gruff voice ask, "How much is she?" My eyes fly open as I realise he must be talking about me, and I lift my head slowly to see a massive Naga male standing before the two dark elves, who are smirking at each other. I gulp as I stare at him. He's even bigger than the dark elves, and I know that whatever his intentions are for me, I won't be able to fulfill them long. It would have been better if no one was interested in me today. I'd finally be allowed to die like I want.
Chapter 2. Kazhir. The market's busy today, which means there will be a lot of options for me. Since it's my day off, I'm in no rush as I peruse the stalls set up here, looking for something that each of my parents will love. It's been a while now since they left the capital to come live with me out here on the border. I still try to show my appreciation every chance I get. I know that they gave up a lot to come live with me, but my injuries a while back were too much for me to care for alone. I've healed well since the orc attack that left me bedridden, but my parents never left. I don't mind. I love having them around. I've always been very close to them, and leaving them in the capital while I was out on the border alone was very difficult. I think we've all been happier since their move to join me. It's made me feel lighter to have my family around, and I find myself smiling softly as I inspect jewelry, pastries, and herbs for my mother. She may be easy to please, but I want to find something that will truly delight her. I'm so engrossed in my search that I almost don't even notice the cage in the corner as I come around a bend in the market. It's set up close to a culinary shop, and as I move toward the table, I realize that the cage is not empty as I first thought. Pressed against the backside, I spot a small figure. I think it's a human, though whatever it is so curled in on itself that I can barely see anything but the tattered cloth protecting its frame. I pause, frowning deeply as I examine the person in the cage further. Then 2 dark elves step into my field of view. They must be the ones selling the human, and obviously they noticed my stare. Distaste fills my mouth as I take in their greedy gazes, and my heart hurts for the person that has been in their charge. The market for a long time has been filled with the sale of goods cultivated here in Nagaland. Only in recent years have other races been allowed to participate, and while few dark elves wander onto this continent, it's even more rare for a human to be dragged along with them. I wonder if news is spreading about the nobles' newfound interest in humans. Many have started to keep them as pets, though I don't agree with the concept or the idea of selling them like they are property. I've gotten to know a human, Gemma. I've spent a lot of time since she became Uza's mate talking to her, and we've even become friends. I know that humans aren't lesser beings as others try to say. In fact, in some ways they are stronger than even the mightiest warriors. Just ask Uza. Uza has started to throw barbecues every weekend for his mate, and many others, like me, enjoy the events. None of us are as enthusiastic as Gemma, though, and I know Uza puts them on to spoil her. That's how I've come to know her so well. I've spent nearly every weekend with her since Uza claimed her, and I've learned just how wise and kind she is. It's taught me how similar we are to other races, and I've seen the change of heart in countless other Naga after meeting Gemma. In fact, most Naga, especially out here on the border, look at humans differently than the rest of Protheka. I wouldn't say we see them as equals or that most Naga are even friendly, but it is definitely a much warmer and less hostile environment for the humans than it once was. I personally can understand how Uza took a human as a mate, though. They're much more than they were ever given credit for. And with my experience with Gemma, I know I can't leave that human in the clutches of the dark elves. I suck in a deep breath before moving toward the cage, the dark elf merchants watching me too closely. As I approach, the human doesn't even stir, and my heart squeezes painfully. Are they that far gone? I've seen humans so numb they don't even react to outward stimuli, and I hope this isn't the case. Up close, I can tell it is a human woman, her hair long and tangled. She's so small, though, that I wonder how she's still alive. Her stillness strikes a new worry in me. How much is she? I ask the dark elves, my eyes never leaving the woman. 2 noir. I blink, my gaze shifting to them. 2 noir? You can't be serious. That's as much as my house payment, and it is way too expensive for someone in her state. The other dark elf looks between me and his companion. We'll lower it to a noir and rubio. I cross my arms over my chest, bowing up so they have to acknowledge my height that towers over them. Do you see how small she is? You've starved her so much that she'll be of no use to me for the first few weeks. Her body is incapable of labor in this state. The dark elf's gaze slides over to her, and the lust in it makes me want to punch him. Her body can be used for other things. It makes me sick how they are, but I hold my tongue on that front. I need someone to help my parents around the home, not a bedsport that will break before I even finish. The words are harsh, but it's the only way to get through to a dark elf. She'll need to be able to do laborious jobs, and I'll have to nourish her because of your negligence. The dark elves exchange a glance before the first one finally says, "A rubio and a blanc. That's the most I'm willing to do." I look at her again, knowing I can't leave her here. Fine, I grumble, digging the coins out of my pocket. I know that all I have left from last month's salary is 2 blanc, and I can't buy anything good with those meager coins. As the dark elf pulls open the cage door, though, I know it is worth it. My parents wouldn't have cared about gifts, but saving a life will mean a lot to all of us. The dark elf yanks the girl forward, and she tumbles across the cage floor and nearly drops onto the ground. Her legs catch her, though they shake, and I have to ball my fist to keep from attacking the elf as he yanks on her again. There's a collar around her neck, and the deep red marks across her skin tell me it's been there a while. The dark elf doesn't even hold her by that, though. He has his hand fisted in her hair as he drags her along, her feet stumbling over the uneven ground as she's forced toward me. I grit my teeth as I take her from him, grabbing the collar as gently as possible. Even though Nagaland is progressing in the right direction, it still would be frowned upon for me to treat this woman as my equal. Instead, I pull her out of the market, waiting until we are so far away that no one will be able to see us. Then, I let go of her and drop to a crouch so that we are eye level. Her hair is matted to her skull in some places, and her face is covered in dirt and grime. The skin around her eyes is sunken in, and her bones protrude outward like a skeleton. It's sick. I'm Kazhir, I tell her in a soft, low voice, trying to sound as unthreatening as possible. Just looking at her makes my heart squeeze, and I can feel myself going soft as I take in her terrible state, only left to assume how she ended up this way. What's your name?
Chapter 3. Shayna. My name? Why does he want to know my name? The only people who ever ask are other human slaves. One of them actually gave me my name. We had lived in the same house when I was a child, but slaves don't have a home. Soon, she was gone, and then I was sold off to the highest bidder. I don't know if my parents were dead or didn't care enough to stop them. I used to wonder about them, but it didn't take long for me to learn the harsh lessons life has to teach. As a slave, my life is insignificant, no past and no future. So, why would this Naga want to know my name? Slaves aren't meant to have names. We are whatever our masters call us. But I do have one. Do I have to tell him? He's not ordering but asking. I'm not accustomed to that. It makes me panic, scared that he's playing a game with me. If I answer incorrectly, will he punish me? If I speak, will he call me impudent? Is this some kind of test? Getting a new master is always a gamble. Rarely are they nice. I have never experienced a nice home, but some slaves I used to know told me about their good years, when their masters treated them with kindness, but that sounded like a fairy tale. I never decided if I should believe their stories. Hope is a dangerous thing. I'd seen slaves lose their lives because they believed something better was on the way. It was never true. There is nothing better than this. There is only death to save us. I don't trust this Naga. He bought me. He owns me. Lying in that cage, I thought I'd finally find the sweet relief of death. My last moments would have been torture with those dark elves, but it had almost come. I was nearly free. I had prayed for death for years. There were times I thought about taking my own life, but I didn't have the courage to do it, so I suffered, waiting for my life to go on its own. But once again, I don't get what I want. Instead, I have to think about my new master. What if he is cruel? What if he keeps me alive just to torture me? I had lived through masters like that. It's one thing to be ignored, but to be the focus of someone's ire. I can't do that again. I can't. Panic starts to build inside me. My mind starts to cloud with worry. I am barely hanging on to the life I have. Soon I will be totally foregone. Just an empty shell. I wish I was brave enough to try and escape, but the fight had been beaten out of me. I no longer had any strength. Simply standing takes so much of my energy. How was I going to work in a household? Can you tell me your name? The Naga's Kazhir's voice scares me. I flinch at the sound of it, immediately dropping to the ground. Did I make him mad with my silence? I don't know what to do. What he wants me to do. I slam my head into the soil, showing my contrition. Maybe if he sees that I am sorry, he won't hurt me. When the hard ground connects with my skin, the pain shoots from my forehead to the back of my head. It isn't the worst pain I've ever been through, but it does hurt. I bite back tears and press my forehead into the ground even harder. The rocks and dirt dig into the wound that's formed, mixing with my blood. If I'm lucky, I'll get an infection and be dead within the week. What are you doing? Kazhir's hands come under my arms, picking me up. I resist the urge to squirm. I don't want him to touch me. The blood on my forehead drips down my face, but it doesn't worry me. Why did you do that? Did they make you hurt yourself? I look at him and see concern. I don't get it. Self-harm was a favoured tactic. Masters would make us hurt ourselves with the threat that the pain would be much worse if we didn't. If they didn't have us harm ourselves, they would have other slaves harm us. A way to create distrust. But this Naga isn't doing that. What is he doing? I remember him telling the dark elves that he wants a labourer to help in his house. He is probably worried about damaging the merchandise. Worried that I won't be worth whatever he paid for me. I don't say anything, just throw my gaze to the ground. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. Just don't do that again, please. I am so surprised that I look Kazhir directly in the eyes. They are brilliant gold. His red scales are an interesting contrast against them. I don't know much about the Naga, just the insults the dark elves had for them. While I don't trust the dark elves, that doesn't mean my feelings on the Naga are going to be any different. All the races in Protheka viewed humans as lower than dirt. Why would the Naga be any different? But what does he mean by, if I don't want to? I can choose. I've never been given a choice. And why doesn't he want me to hurt myself? The look on his face is telling me it isn't about making sure I can work. If that was the case, wouldn't he be angry at me? Wouldn't he punish me for damaging his purchase? He actually looks like he is worried for me, but that's impossible. He puts me back on my feet, and I stand there looking at him. Who is this Naga? What does he want with me? The worst kinds of environments are the ones where I can't predict what my master will do. And Kazhir is unpredictable. He brings his hand to my forehead, and I flinch, worried he's going to slap me. Instead, he wipes the blood and dirt from my forehead. He frowns at my flinching but doesn't say anything. But that isn't what concerns me. It's still his face. He keeps making these strange expressions. I want to know what they mean, but I am too afraid to ask. Suddenly, he picks me up, causing my entire body to stiffen. Close physical contact with my masters never led to anything good. It's going to be okay, he whispers in my ear. It's just easier and faster this way. He starts walking again. I don't know how to feel about him. I keep my hands from touching his scales, but I can't help but stare at them. They are just like a snake, but more vivid. My arm is pressed into the Kazhir's chest, and his scales are smooth. I don't know why I am thinking about his appearance so much. All of my logic is telling me to have my guard up and never trust him, but he's been different so far. It's weird. He makes me feel weird. We arrive at a carriage, and he places me inside. He gets in the front and starts driving it. The gentle movements begin to lull me to sleep. Something about Kazhir's presence soothes me. I do everything I can to fight off the drowsiness. My mind is fighting my body for supremacy. My brain is saying don't fall for his tricks, but my body wants to accept the comfortable environment and fall asleep. I haven't had a peaceful night's sleep ever. My entire life has been about survival. Is that about to change? What is going to happen to me now?
Chapter 4. Kazhir, curl your fingers unless you're trying to lose them. My mother clucks at me. I thought I taught you better than that. I do as she asks, tucking my fingers out of the way. Then I continue to slice vegetables for dinner in a mother-approved fashion. Doesn't stop me from rolling my eyes at her, however. My mother catches the eye roll and playfully throws a mushroom across the counter at me. I do enough around here already. Don't expect me to take care of you when you cut off your hand. That's true. I agree pleasantly and stop cutting to kiss her cheek. She smiles a little at the display of affection. Then she clears her throat and returns to preparing dinner. Nagas aren't, as a rule, particularly receptive to emotional displays. It's just our nature. My parents are no exception, although we do have a degree of intimacy at home that I'd guess most Nagas don't. It's always been an excellent example for me to follow, and probably part of the reason I can't ignore a suffering human like Shayna. My parents couldn't either, though I wasn't surprised by that at all. When I brought her home, my mother took pity on her immediately. She sent her to a guest bedroom to rest, and we began cooking dinner so that she could have a good meal. Nagas don't like to show love, but the truth is that my mother has a bottomless heart full of it. My parents won't discriminate against anything that needs their care, whether it's human, Naga, or a wilting flower. "I'm glad you brought her home," my mother says somberly, as if reading my thoughts. "There's a lot of tragedy that could have come to her if we left her out there. You're like me. You can't help but feel mercy for those weaker than you. Most of them see weakness as a chance to dominate another, when we would rather build them up." I turned this over in my head for a while, saying nothing. My parents are some of the best Naga I know, but the praise feels unearned to me. I don't think I'm anywhere near as compassionate as my mother is. Someday I want a loving relationship and family like my parents have. They're true mates, full of love for each other and everyone else. I want that, but I also know that I still have a lot to learn about loving someone more than I love myself. To hear my mother speak of me so highly when I know I'm nowhere near her level is a little embarrassing. But I don't know how to explain this to her, that I'm not as good as she thinks. That this time, for some reason, was an exception and I still have a long way to go. My father walks into the kitchen then, his tongue flicking out to taste the air. "Smells good," he praises, and my mother feeds him a slice of mushroom. My mind is still distracted by my mother's speech from earlier. As I watch my parents' loving interaction, I accidentally cut my finger with the knife. I pull my hand away quickly, holding it up to my face to examine it. It's a small cut, nothing to be concerned over. "You need to curl your fingers when you're cutting with a knife," my father observes. My mother raises an eyebrow as if to say, "See? I told you so." I resist the urge to roll my eyes again. "I'll be right back," I mutter, heading to my room to deal with it. I could have cleaned it there, but I didn't want to listen to my parents lecture me the whole time. In my room, I quickly wipe the blood away and the healing kicks in quite quickly. In a matter of seconds, it's already starting to stitch closed. On the way back into the kitchen, I pass the room we gave to the human. The door is still open, and I decide to peek inside and check on her. It seems like the right thing to do, since I'm her host. She's just sitting on the bed, staring at the wall. I had expected to find her asleep, or at least relaxing. But something about the vacant expression on her face unnerves me. I hesitate in the doorway, caught by surprise. The more that I watch her, I realize that what bothers me about her expression is that it's like her mind and her body are entirely disconnected from each other right now. While her body sits on this bed, her mind has gone someplace else to escape everything that she's feeling. The fact that she can do this at all makes my stomach churn sympathetically. Just how difficult has her life been? How much suffering is required for a person to train their mind to leave their body like this? It's hard to wrap my own mind around the idea that someone could do this to another person and see nothing wrong. I take a deep breath and move closer to her. I suppose I'm trying to offer her some sort of unspoken support. But when she finally notices me drawing closer, she just flinches. A tiny noise comes out of her throat, yelping like a wounded animal. My heart constricts painfully at the sound. She might as well have reached into my chest and squeezed it in her fist. She looks up at me, and her amber eyes are haunting. Her brown hair is a stark contrast against her pale skin. While I suspect her skin is always quite light, it's blanched out now with the terror that she feels. I try to relax my face into a smile, to make it clear that she does not need to be afraid of me. "I won't hurt you," I assure her. "You're safe here. You don't need to be afraid." I reach out one hand, but she still flinches away. I haven't fixed anything at all. In fact, I'm making things worse. She's cowering on the edge of the bed from me, her knees drawn up tightly to protect herself. Lamely, I drop my hand. I don't know what to do, but I genuinely feel bad that I'm only upsetting her more. I take a step back to give her some space and try to shrink myself down to seem less intimidating. None of it matters. She won't even look at me, her head tucked into her knees. I feel like a monster because now I've set her off. Leaving her alone to fend for herself doesn't seem right, but torturing her more by staying can't be the answer either. Luckily, my mother glides inside to stand beside me just then. "You leave," she whispers to me calmly. "I'll take care of her." I let out a shaky breath and nod. The whirlwind of thoughts in my head subsides, and I'm just relieved that someone knows what to do now, because I certainly didn't. I do as my mother says, and dutifully retreat into the hall. She shuts the door behind me. I stay at the door and listen in, thinking that perhaps I can learn something for the future. If the human is this frightened and skittish, easing her anxiety may take a while. I don't want to have to call my mother every time she panics. With my ear pressed up to the door, I concentrate. I can hear my mother's voice. It's very low and calm, steady and reassuring. It reminds me of the way she used to speak to me when I had a bad dream. I can't make out exactly what she's saying, but I try to make a mental note of the tone of her voice at least. My eyes widen in surprise when I hear a second voice. The human can talk after all.
Chapter 5. Shayna. I look out the window from my spot on the bed. The sun is high. I'm not entirely sure of the passage of time, but I'd guess it's around noon the day after I came here. When I first got here, they sent me to this room. I wasn't sure what they planned for me. When Kazhir came in, I was frightened. I'd rather be a house servant than a bedroom slave. Luckily, I don't think that's what he is after. His mother, Luhyaula, came in next. She was very nice and kind, and it started to put my mind at ease. She talked to me for a while, and she didn't get upset that I can't speak well or much. That helped me relax because my stutter has gotten me in trouble before. Unfortunately, when I get hit for stuttering, it only makes me anxious, and then I stutter more. Having Luhyaula not mind the way that I talk takes a real weight off my shoulders. I was surprised when she left that they still hadn't given me a job to do. Kazhir and Luhyaula have been in my room several times to check on me since then. I still get nervous when I see Kazhir, expecting the worst, but he's never been anything but kind. The last time he came in was this morning. He said he was just stopping by to check on me. Then he let me know that he was going to be working outside with his father, Mark Yallo. If I needed anything, his mother would be in the house. I was almost glad to see him this time. That scared me in a different way, and I spent the rest of the morning reminding myself that he isn't my friend. I've never had an owner who was kind enough that I needed to be reminded of that. I glance at the open door of my bedroom. If I'm supposed to stay in my room, it's strange that they don't lock the door or at least shut it. But if I'm supposed to be a house servant, why aren't they giving me a job to do? Should I just go out there and start working? It seems like this might be a decent place for a slave, and I don't want them to get rid of me because I'm a bad worker. I've been a slave long enough to know that this is turning out much better than a lot of the other options. I stand up and creep slowly out of the room and down the hall. As I go, I try to think of a chore that I can do to prove I'm worth keeping. I need to start impressing them, and fast, before I'm back out there. The smell of food drifts to my nose, and I follow the scent. It leads me into the kitchen where Luhyaula is preparing lunch. With shame, I realise that I should have been doing this. I'll he help, I manage to stammer out. She looks up from a pot that she's stirring, and her face lights up to see me. Great, she agrees pleasantly. I can't believe how nice she is. She waves a hand to me, indicating I should come over. I do as she asks, standing beside her. Do you know how to make a brine? I consider lying for a second, just so she doesn't think I'm worthless. But it occurs to me that even if I lie, She'd find out when she tasted my food. No, I admit unhappily. It doesn't seem to bother her, and instead she just begins to show me what to do. As she talks, it sinks in for me what a great cook this woman is. I know basically nothing about cooking, and I'm never going to be able to meet her expectations. I thought she could give me a list of directions, but this is so much harder than I thought. No wonder the meal was so good last night. She's basically a professional cook. She has no reason to keep someone like me around. I sink to my knees, pleading for mercy. Please, I beg. I'm not much. I can't be as good as you. I'll do something else. I'll do anything. I look at the floor, my face flaming red. I'm ashamed of my worthlessness. I'm ashamed that even as I beg for compassion, she has to hear me stutter and stammer like an idiot. Why would she keep a slave who can't even talk? If they're going to send me back out there, I'd rather they just kill me and get it over with. Maybe that can be the next thing I plead for. There's a long and uncomfortable silence. Finally, I feel a hand touch my shoulder gently. Nervously, I look up to meet her gaze. Her eyes are wide in surprise. "It's okay," she says softly. "You don't have to cook at all. I just thought you might enjoy it, that's all." Then she laughs a little. "Cooking is in my royal blood. Trust me, I'm fine with cooking on my own." I shake my head. "But I have to do something. What kind of slave should I be?" A voice interrupts from the doorway. "You aren't a slave at all," it says, sounding shocked. "You're a guest in our home." I look over to see Kazhir. His mouth is still open a little to show his surprise, and his brow furrowed. I scramble up off my knees, looking back and forth between them. A guest? They brought me here as a guest and not a slave. I'm speechless. When I say nothing in response, Kazhir continues. "My mother is very fond of you. My father is happy to have you stay also, and I, of course, am the one who brought you here in the first place." He glides across the floor to come closer, but moves very slowly and cautiously. I feel almost like he is trying to catch a butterfly, but then it occurs to me that the butterfly is me. "You can stay as long as you want. If you help my mother cook, it's because you like it. You're no one's slave, not anymore." I look at him, and my disbelief must be evident. He just nods solemnly. Then I turn to face Luyaula. "It's true," she agrees with a small smile. I begin to cry. It's as if the tension my body has carried for so long starts to wash out of me through my sobs. I sink down to the floor again, physically unable to support myself. Luyaula bends down to the floor to give me a hug. "It's true," she says again. "We like you and we like having you here." I sob louder, having never heard anyone say those words to me before. It sounds so simple. I like you. We like you. But no one ever has. Can they be for real? She holds me as I cry, and one hand strokes my brown hair soothingly. I can feel her warmth as I lean against her shoulder. I take a few deep breaths, sniffling, and try to calm myself down. As I do so, I turn my head to see Kazhir. He's just watching me, a thoughtful look on his face. His golden eyes are serious, and his tail is flicking back and forth like it usually does. Kazhir is rough and wild-looking, his body is scarred, and he's tough and imposing. He's not at all what I thought a guardian angel would look like. But maybe I need to rethink that, because it's starting to feel like he is one after all. There isn't much left of the world after the orcs came.
Savage. Brutal. Merciless.
If you're a woman, you're property. Even to other humans.
What happens when an orc stakes his claim on a human woman? Who would dare to stop him?
Me.
Chapter 6. Kazhir. I watch Shayna carefully as she helps my mother around the house. I know my presence isn't completely forgotten, but she doesn't seem to tense up as I pass by a room that she is in, or if I am cleaning my weapons while they ready dinner. It warms my heart to see how relaxed she's become. I know that she still only really talks to my mother, but that is enough for me to see a huge improvement over the past week. At first, Shayna was a trembling, stuttering mess. She knelt before us and apologized all the time. It took my mother a lot of work to get Shayna to be more comfortable here. Now, while she still insists on helping around the house, it feels more like everyone doing their share rather than her trying to fulfill her slave work. She also seems happy. I don't have the stomach to wonder what she went through, though it wouldn't take much of my imagination to piece it together. But Shayna used to be such a nervous wreck that I spent all my time worrying over her. Now, she has a constant smile on her face, especially when talking to Mom. I've also noticed her stutter is improving, as we've encouraged her to talk to us more. That doesn't mean she's taken up any less space in my mind, though. As my worries shifted into relief, I started to just think about her whenever I wasn't home. I wondered what she was doing or how she was feeling, mostly out of habit at first. But then I started to realize that I was genuinely curious about her. I've been growing more interested in Shayna as time has passed. She's come around to talking to me more, only a sentence or two a day, really, and I don't know how or why I've become so taken with her. I can see a kindness peeking out that I want to see more of in this world. She actually has a pretty good sense of humor. It doesn't hurt that she's also very beautiful for a human. When I first saw her, all I could look at was how bony she was, and it made me sick. Her skin isn't so wan now with the proper nourishment, and although she hasn't started putting on weight yet, her hair has taken on a sheen that tells me her body is improving. It's beautiful out today, so as I finish cleaning my weapons and hanging them up, I head outside. I had seen Shayna and Mom come out here earlier to the garden. My mother is a flower enthusiast, and it seems that Shayna has the green thumb, too. I stand at the edge of the garden, watching as Shayna works with a big smile on her face. She's singing softly under her breath, and though it is low, it is a song I know well. My mother must have taught it to her, though it sounds so different on her lips as it is the language of the ancient ones. My heart leaps as I watch her. I'm not sure what to make of it, but the heat that sears through my body is definitely because of Shayna. I find that any time I'm around her, especially when she seems so at ease like now, my heart starts to flutter and my stomach twists. The sun shines down on her, and I can see golden streaks in her brown hair illuminated by the rays. Her skin has deepened a little, just a shade from the sun, so that she is no longer ghostly white, and it looks good on her. I'm not sure if I made a noise, or if I was just staring so hard that she felt it. But suddenly, Shayna's head jerks up, and she looks toward me. My breath catches as our eyes lock, but her smile just falls away, her gaze dropping down to the ground. She studies it intensely, like it is the most interesting thing in the world. I sigh as my heart squeezes. As happy as I am with her progress, I still wish we could make more headway between the two of us. While she's become more comfortable, she seems to only tolerate me in my parents' presence. She's even come around to my father more than me, and it stings a little. I brush my hair out of my face with my fingers, trying not to feel frustrated. I just thought that as I was the one who saved her from those dark elves, brought her here to my home, and assured her she's not a slave, that she would eventually open up to me. She's been through a lot, I remind myself. Still, that doesn't stop me from wanting to bridge the gap between us. I rack my brain, trying to think of a way to erase her apprehension toward me. Then, it hits me. The reason I was so drawn to Shayna at the market is because of Gemma. I gotta know her, to know how humans really are, and I couldn't handle seeing Shayna locked up in a cage. I wonder if that would ease Shayna at all, to talk to another human like her. Secretly, I also hope that Gemma will erase all of the negative feelings that Shayna seems to have toward me. Since Gemma and I are friends, maybe it'll help her see that I'm not a threat of any kind. Gemma just came back from the royal palace last night, or I would have done it sooner. Still, I feel a little bad for not thinking of it before. I'm sure that if I ask her to come here, she will. The only question that remains is if Shayna will appreciate it. I suck in a deep breath, knowing there's only one way to find out. Crossing the garden, I approach her slowly, and I can see her peeking at me from the corner of her eyes. As I stop a few feet away, Shayna turns her head slowly to look at me. She eyes me nervously, and I try to ignore that as I give her a wide smile. The garden looks lovely, I tell her. Her eyes dart between the flowers and me, and I watch as she gulps. I internalize my sigh as she answers, "Thank you." I nod, looking out across our lands toward my mother. I don't want to weigh her down with my stare. You've been working hard around here, and we all appreciate it. My mom loves having you here to help. My eyes flick back to her to watch her bob her head. I chew on the inside of my cheek, but the silence only stretches between us. At the risk of freaking her out, I crouch down so that we are closer to eye level, and she's not kneeling at my feet. She watches me as I do so, but doesn't spook. "What would you think of playing hooky today?" Immediately, her gaze goes to my mom. I should probably stay here." Again, I just give her a warm smile. "I have a surprise for you, though. I really think you're going to like it." I can see the excitement and curiosity in her eyes. She clearly is interested in what I have to say, and she must not think I am that threatening if she looks so compelled to come with me. To sweeten the deal, I add, "I'll let Mom know that it's my fault you're gone today." She won't mind. Shayna purses her lips as she thinks about it, and I stretch my hand out to her. "What do you say? Will you come with me?" My heart thunders as I wait for her response, and I find myself begging her to take a chance on me. Why do I care so much about this woman?
Chapter 7. Shayna. I stare back at him, his red scales bringing out the warm honey colour of his eyes. They look so earnest, and I want to trust him. It's just hard for me to. Slowly, though, I reach out my hand to place it in his. I know Kazhir has been nothing but nice to me. It's not that I don't like him. It's that I don't know how to act around him. He bought me, saved me, and I appreciate that. My whole life I've only been trained to be a slave, and around such a large warrior, it's hard for me not to shy away from him. It's an old habit that's not fair to him. So I nod. His face splits into a wide grin, and I'm surprised by the warmth that spreads through me at that. I don't want to make his life difficult, and I'm glad to see that I can do something to make him smile. "Follow me," he tells me as he pulls me up to my feet. I glance over to my shoulder where Lu Yaola is still working on her prized flowers. She waves at me, gives me a big smile, and then makes a shooing motion with her hand. I nod and wave back. When I turn around, Kazhir is still standing there, his eyes evaluating my interaction. Though there is a slight frown on his face, he doesn't say anything. Instead, he turns and starts toward the front of his house. I rush to keep up with him when I see he's approaching his carriage. My eyes widen and my heart flutters. Where are we going? This is the first time I've left his house, and I'm curious to see more of Nagaland. I know so little of where I am now, and although I still don't understand what the surprise is, unless it's this, I'm eager to jump onto the front bench with him. I watch Kazhir as he readies the carriage, bridling his hokin and fixing them to the front. I wonder if he's doing this for me as I've seen him walk on foot into the city most days. It's one of the many things I've come to appreciate about him, his thoughtfulness. Like how he asked me to go with him instead of forcing me. He waited patiently until I agreed, when he could have just dragged me off to wherever he wanted to. "Ready?" he asks as he climbs up into his seat beside me. He flashes me another bright smile, and I nod. I take in Nagaland, with its clean roads and crude structures as we pass by, but my eyes keep flicking over to Kazhir. I'm nervous about the surprise, but I don't ask him. I have a feeling he'll tell me just to ease my nerves, and it'll ruin it for him. He's nice like that, and I don't know how to react to it. In fact, it scares me a little because every time he does, something stirs inside of me that I don't understand. I've never had anyone be this nice to me, and I've definitely never felt like this toward anyone before. I don't understand them, but I'm careful to bury them. I know my heart enough to know that if he doesn't feel the same way about me, it'll hurt. I'd rather just keep everything inside and never ask what he thinks of me than feel embarrassed and rejected. I tear my eyes away from Kazhir as we move through the bustling streets. Everywhere I look, the Naga are staring at me. I can see the curiosity in their eyes, and I notice how there are no other humans on the streets. I can't be the first person here, can I? Finally, we turn off the main road, and I notice that this is a residential area. Kazhir guides our carriage up in front of a house, and I look at him nervously as we roll to a stop. He turns to me, but before he says anything, the door flies open. There's a woman, a human woman, standing there. Kazhir? She stops, her eyes catching me, and she darts down the path to where I am. She grabs my hands, staring up at me with a huge smile. Oh my, you're beautiful. She laughs a little, and I smile nervously at her. My eyes go to Kazhir as I wait for instruction, and he only nods his head in question. I remember then that I am not his slave, and I look back to the woman, knowing that I am on my own to navigate this situation. I can see the sadness in Gemma's eyes. She must know what I was doing, what I was thinking. I'm Gemma, she tells me. I'm Uza's mate. Kazhir sent me a letter after he found you, and I'm so glad that he was able to save you. She squeezes my hands. I've heard a little about what you've been through, and I'm relieved we were able to get you out of there. I nod, not knowing what more to say, and the woman, Gemma, leans around me to look at Kazhir. Would you both like to come in? He climbs out of the carriage, coming around to my side to help me. Gemma swats him away though, and I press my lips together, blushing as she helps me onto the ground. She links her arm through mine as we start toward her house, and I realise how good it feels not to be an anomaly anymore. Her house is massive and gorgeous, and I'm gawking around the room as she leads us in. Uza's not here, she calls to Kazhir. I'm not here for him anyway. It hits me then that this was his surprise, for me to meet another human woman, someone who is clearly not a slave. Maybe I can learn to relax here if it is more widely accepted. A heavy hand falls on my shoulder, and I spin around out of reflex. Kazhir jerks back, his eyes apologetic. I have to go back to work, but I thought you might like to spend the day with Gemma here. He crouches down so I don't have to crane my head back to look at him. Will you be okay with that? I look between her and him, swallowing hard before nodding. He rises, giving me a small smile, and looks to Gemma. I'm going to leave Shayna in your good hands then. She smiles brightly. I'll take good care of her. His warm eyes soak up my face for another minute before he turns and leaves. Immediately after the door shuts, I feel panic start to surge up in my chest. My heart squeezes painfully, and I feel like bolting after him. In his home, I don't know how to act around Kazhir. I've grown close to his parents, but with him being out at work all the time, and the way he makes me feel, I try to keep some distance between us. Here, though, I'm left with a stranger. I don't know her. I don't trust her. I trust Kazhir and his family, and I know his routine so well. I know when he'll be home. This time, I don't know when he's coming back, and it makes me nervous. I step closer to the window, watching as he propels himself forward with his tail. He moves so fast, and it feels like in just a blink of an eye, he's gone. It hurts me that he just left, and I can't believe how desperately I want him to come back. I thought it would be nice to get out to see the city, but now I miss the comfortable routine I have fallen into with his family. I miss him already. I swallow hard against all the emotion, trying to contain, and I don't even realise that Gemma has come closer. Then, I feel her hand on my arm, and I stiffen as she asks, "Do you like him?" Chapter 8. Shayna. Shock ripples through me, and I stare at Gemma in disbelief. My mind is spinning as her words echo in my ears, and I stumble back a step, shaking my head. Like him, what he... no. I curse my stuttering as my nerves grip me, but I can't get a handle on my racing heart. Gemma just stares at me with raised eyebrows, and I shake my head again. I don't even know now what it means to like someone. I gulp, trying to calm myself. I haven't experienced it before. My hands tremble as I stare at her, and I'm surprised by how much her question upset me. I know I am grateful to Kazhir. He's sweet and patient, and I appreciate all that he's done to me. I feel more comfortable with him and his family than I ever have before, and I don't like that he's just left. My emotions get a little jumbled up when I'm around him, and I shut down a lot because of it. I don't know what to say or do, but surely that's just because I don't know how to properly thank him. Can those feelings be mixed up? Can I be grateful to him and like him? I'm not sure. Gemma offers me a soft smile. Come sit. He'll be back soon. I follow her into her sitting room, and once we've settled into our seats, her eyes still assessing me, she says, I wasn't sure with Uza at first either. I was so used to taking care of everyone else. I never knew how to take care of just me. I didn't know how to react to my feelings for him, and I ignored them for so long. Nodding, I tell her, I've never been around someone so nice. I'm grateful. How do I know if I feel something more? She gives me a knowing smile. Does your heart flutter when he's around? I bite down on my lip, remembering how I felt earlier when I first saw him in the gardens. Do you get butterflies in your stomach? If by butterflies she means she feels sick, then yes. Do you always think about him? I stare down at my lap. Kazhir is almost all I think about, how he makes me feel, how I should act around him, when he'll be home. I thought that just meant I cared about the person that rescued me, but maybe it went deeper than just hoping my saviour didn't die. Gemma crosses the sitting room to take a seat beside me. I didn't answer any of her questions, but her eyes tell me she knows it already. I bet my face gave it away. I've been told I show all my emotions on my face. I can't tell you how you feel. No one can. It's something you have to figure out yourself. Deep in my heart, I can feel every one of those things she said and more. I know I like Kazhir. It's not just that I feel like I owe him or that I'm grateful for his help. I just enjoy being around him, knowing he's such a kind soul. Of course, I'm drawn to him. I was like you know, she continues, leaning against me. Uza took me after I was almost killed. He fed me and protected me, giving me anything I wanted to eat and taking me around Nagaland. I thought he was just being nice or that he was trying to do the right thing by keeping me from dying. Her eyes are staring far off, and I watch her face as her lips curl up. I didn't tell him how I felt when I did figure it out. I thought he couldn't love me back, but Naga aren't an especially kind people. If Kazhir is giving you this much attention and care, it's because he's interested in you. I raise my eyebrows. Really? Gemma nods. He's become a good friend of mine, and I know him. He's very dedicated to his job. He took time out of his workday to bring you here because he cares. It's like with Uza. I had to see that he was giving up what was most important to him for me to understand that he was putting me first. Men, not matter what species, only do that for those they love. I'm not sure what to do with all the swelling emotions in my chest. I have so many questions from what she just said. I choose to start with an easy one. Why did Kazhir bring me here? Was it for her to convince me to be with him? She cocks her head, thinking at first. I guess because he didn't want you to be lonely. When I first came here, I couldn't do anything without Uza. I felt trapped and alone, especially when I was the only human in Nagaland. He probably didn't want you to feel alone. It warms my heart, but my mind snags on one other thing she said. You were the only human in Nagaland? My eyes are wide with wonder. I was. Gemma squeezes my hand. Now there's two of us, and I know exactly what you're going through. I'm so happy to have a friend. I'm surprised by the excitement I feel fluttering my chest too. I've never had a friend before. I'm glad to have you, Gemma. Her smile deepens. Do you think you could tell me more about... I'm so nervous to finish the sentence, I'm worried it won't even come out. But being with a Naga? Her eyes sparkle, and I'm not surprised that she's fascinated to tell me what it's like. Well, for one thing, Naga are fiercely loyal. They'll never turn their backs on you, and they even have to fight anyone else who is interested in you to mate. Our guys are big sweethearts, though. They'll act like they are big and tough, but deep down, they just want someone to love like we do. Her eyes dart around as if making sure we are still alone, and she leans in closer, almost whispering in a low voice. And the screw is amazing. I blush furiously. Never have I heard a human slave say something like that. Amazing? Gemma nods. The guys have 2 members, and it sounds terrifying. She rushes through with a laugh as my eyebrows shoot up. But they are so worried about making you feel good that it's a good thing, I promise. My knees squeeze together as a sharp ache shoots up me, and I try to ignore it. They're very different from us. Oh yeah, but it doesn't take long before you get the hang of it. You just have to go slow the first few times, but once you get used to the barbs, it feels incredible. Bards? I squeak out. She chuckles a little. They aren't sharp. It just adds more of a pleasant sensation to it all. Very different from anyone else. I nod, thinking it over. I'm not a virgin, but my experiences have been terrible. No pleasure, a fair amount of pain, and a little soul-crushing. I shiver at the thought. Most importantly, she adds, leaning in to rub my arms, they will do anything to make sure that you feel good, even if you want to stop. To have a lover that cares for my pleasure sounds incredible, and I know with Kazhir's kind eyes and caring soul, he'd never do anything to me that I didn't want. I'm surprised by how quick the image of his naked body over me flashes in my mind, and against that unbearable heat wraps around my core. I'm sure I'm bright red, and I'm nervous as I consider how I'm going to look at Kazhir again. I can no longer say my interest in him is innocent with all that Gemma has told me. I was able to squash down my emotional interest for a while, but now that it's been exposed, along with my physical intrigue, I don't know what I'm going to do when he comes back. Chapter 9. Shayna. My stomach is in knots from the second that Kazhir returns. He thanks Gemma for letting us come over, and I murmur goodbye to her. She gives me one tight hug before I leave, and then I leave with Kazhir. He helps me up into the carriage, though I nearly shy away from his hands. I know he notices from the way he huffs, but it's because I can barely stand his hands on my body. They make all of Gemma's words flood my brain until I want to guide his touch lower. I avert my gaze, uncertain of what to say to him. I'm sure I'm bright pink, but I don't want to tell him why. When I arrive back home, Kazhir's home, I practically leap from the carriage so I won't need his help. Inside, Luyavla is there, but she leaves as Kazhir and I sit down for dinner. The silence between us is stifling, but I can barely think with all of my emotions and what Gemma told me swirling in my head. I know how I feel about him, and she encouraged me to tell him. I just don't know how. I have to find some way too, though. Otherwise, I know it will eat away at me to keep it bundled up. As I try to think of something to say, I realise how little I've actually talked to Kazhir. He's listened to and watched me with his parents, and I've listened to him talk. I rarely participate, and I know it's because of my conflicting emotions and training. I guess it's time to bridge that gap. I go to my room after we eat, but I still feel restless. I thought I'd give it the night to sleep on my words, but I can't come up with anything. I don't want to come off as crazy or clingy, especially if he doesn't actually like me back. Maybe I should start with something less nerve-wracking, like thanking him. I've never truly expressed my gratitude to him for setting me free. I pace back and forth across my room as I consider the words I'm going to say. I know he'll be up early, probably before me, tomorrow to go to work. He's very dedicated to his job, and if I don't tell him now, I'll have to wait all day. There's no use in me trying to lay down, because I won't be sleeping tonight. Even as I start toward the bed, my feet seem to turn away without my command. Should I just go talk to him? After debating with myself for what seems like hours, I decide to try to talk to him tonight. At least if I embarrass myself, I can flee to my room and I won't have to see him all day tomorrow. I approach his bedroom door, wringing my hands nervously, but when I see the light is still on, I knock on it. It takes him 2 heavy steps before the door flies open, and he looks surprised to see me. My eyebrows go up, but I fight to keep my eyes focused on his face when I realise he's shirtless. Even without directly looking at his upper half, I can see the rippling muscles there. I know my face must be bright red, and his grin only grows bigger. Does he know what he's doing? Shayna! My heart leaps as he says my name. Do you want to come in? I nod, keeping my head tipped back so my eyes don't stray. My skin is burning, and I don't know how I'm going to get through this conversation. Get a hold of yourself, Shayna. I chastise myself, straightening up so that I don't look so awkward. Oh gods, those abs. No! I clear my throat. I wanted to tell you that I'm grateful for, everything you've done. I shake my head, annoyed at my speech. I should have told you sooner, but, I hope you can forgive my mistakes. Everything is so new to me. Kazhir has sat down on the edge of his bed, his fingers entwined as he watches me. His muscles are tensed in his position, and I can barely pull my eyes away from him. His smile grows wider as he watches me, and my stomach twists. It's okay. I saved you of my own volition. Doing that, doing everything I have for you, makes me happy. I feel fulfilled since having you here. There's no expectation of judgment in his voice. His eyes are still soft and kind. His smile, which is incredibly warm, never wavers. He's not lying. Kazhir truly cares about me. He'll be true to me, and as I remember all that Gemma told me, I feel my nervousness start to melt away. I take a few steps forward, feeling emboldened by my new revelation. He cocks his head, but his eyes light up as I come closer. Sinking next to him, I stare up into his deep eyes. My whole life I knew nothing but being alone. The fire in his eyes turns into a deep smoulder, and I feel brave enough to keep going. As an orphan, I was forced into slavery as a sea child, and as I grew up, I was sold all over Leondor. Kazhir moves closer to me, reaching out to take my hand. That's why you're so quiet. I nod. I lived with my masters until I was no longer of use for whatever they wanted. Then they'd sell me. I had no friends, no family, no home. I learned to be silent to survive. He brushes back a stray hair, and I almost lean into his palm. I don't want you to ever feel like that again. Here, you are free to do whatever you like. You will have friends, like Gemma, and family, like me. My heart tumbles through my chest at the thought. No one will ever take you again. I let my eyes run down his body just once, or maybe 3 times, as if I'm evaluating him. You must be a mighty warrior to make a promise like that. He raises his eyebrows, lifting one arm to flex his enormous muscles. I'm second in command in the Borderlands. He cocks his head to look at me with a deep smirk. I would win against anyone. I press my lips together to keep from full-on laughing. It's the first time I've heard him make a joke, and it helps ease the tension in me as I realise that he's kind of funny. Second, huh? His eyes narrow. Not first. His arm drops dramatically, and he pursues his lips. They say the second is the most powerful since we execute the commander's orders. Wow, I whisper. That's a fancy job. He shrugs. It can be. Sometimes Uza can be hard-headed, though. Uza, I repeat. He's the commander? Kazhir nods, but there's no malice on his face. He looks amused, and I remember that Gemma said these men are fiercely loyal too. He's not jealous of Uza, another quality I find admirable. He's fierce, though I've seen a big change in him since Gemma came here. He reclines back on his elbows and pats the bed next to him. I eye him suspiciously, and he barks out a laugh. Shayna, will you trust me? I blush furiously then. It's the first time he's ever addressed my hesitancy. Normally he's so kind and gentle, but I like this more open and honest side of him. I guess all it took was telling him some of my past. I lay down on my side, propping up on my elbow to face him. Now we're eye to eye, he tells me. Nodding, I try to ignore how close our bodies are. The bed is wide enough for the two of us, but just that. With our bodies close to the centre, if either of us shifts, we'll brush up against one another. To take my mind off of it, I ask another question. How did Gemma get here? His smile turns a little sad, and I want to reach out and touch him. That is a little bit of a crazy story. I nestle into his blankets. Have time. Kazhir grins, launching into his story, and we stay like that all night, recounting stories while our bodies are nearly pressed together. I didn't know it could be so fun to talk to someone.
Chapter 10. Kazhir. I stare after Shayna as she slips out of my room. The sun had started to crest, and we both needed to get ready for the day, though I'd rather have just stayed here in my bed with her, even if it was just talking. I was surprised when she showed up at my door. After her silence all the way back home and through dinner, I was worried something at Gemma's had upset her. Now I think it may have just been exhaustion. She so rarely is around other people besides my parents, and it may have been taxing for her to visit with someone else. A part of me wanted to ask Gemma what they talked about before we left. I'm curious if they talked about me at all and what Shayna said. They must have if she suddenly came to talk to me. Or maybe she saw how much I care about her. I tried to make her feel more comfortable by introducing her to another human. I want her to have a friend, and I was hoping Gemma could ease her nerves, which she seems to have. No matter what it was, I'm glad for it. I've never heard Shayna talk that much, and being able to joke with her and tease her made me happier than I ever knew I could be. There is something special in her, and I'm so glad I found her. Even if the way she made it to Nagaland was awful. I wish I could tear apart all the dark elves that harmed her, but I can't. She poured out her feelings to me about all that she has been through, and the pain was so raw and fresh that I almost wanted to stop her. I didn't, though. I assumed she had never been able to share this with anyone, and I am honored she felt comfortable enough with me to do so. So, I listened, hoping I could help heal her wounds as she shared her pain and burdens for me to help her carry. My heart still hurts for all the pain she's been through. She told me stories of her childhood, so unlike mine, and I wanted to weep for all that she had lost. Instead, I decided to vow something to myself, and I clutch those words to my heart now. I'm determined to show her all the good things life has to offer. I want to bring her happiness every day. It's the driving force of why I get up and dress in my training gear. I must provide for her. I must make her happy. I must make her comfortable. It's why I've been diving even deeper in my work so I can give Shayna everything. The thoughts are still circling my mind as I head into the kitchen for breakfast. My father is already there, helping my mother by cleaning behind her as she cooks. They are an admirable team. I guess I was staring hard at them because my father looks up. "Good morning, Kazhir." "Good morning." My emotions are threatening to overwhelm, and my father must see it in my eyes. He comes closer, cocking his head as he looks at me. "Is everything okay?" Can I talk to you for a second? He nods, following me away from the kitchen to the empty table. I'm starting to feel overwhelmed with some thoughts. Apprehension flickers in my father's eyes. Oh, I groan internally. Not like that. I keep feeling this urge to protect and provide for Shayna, even more than when I met her in the market. I saved her then because I believe she deserved it, but now I can't focus on anything but giving her everything. My father grins. That's what I feel for your mother. For Mom. We both look to her. She's singing quietly as she works, and when I turn back to my dad, he's smiling. It's what you feel for your mate. You feel it as soon as you meet, but it's hard to recognize it at first. It's intense and all-consuming, but you get used to it. You let it drive you to be your best mate. I gulp. Are you sure? He nods. There's no denying it. Once you feel it, you're done. They are yours, and you will never want anything else. My father gets up to go back to cooking, and I need time to think. I leave the table, stepping outside for some fresh air, as my mind turns into a chaotic whirlwind. Is this really what it feels like to mate? I knew that it was intense, and that you would feel a compulsion to do anything for your mate. This, though, I can feel my blood singing out for her when we're apart. My mind only thinks of her, and my arms ache to hold her. She's all I think about. I press a hand to my chest as it threatens to overwhelm me. There is no other explanation for it. It must be that she is my mate. I don't know what I should do now that I know. How do I give her more? The door to the house swings open, and I watch as Shayna emerges. Even at this distance, where I don't think she'll spot me, she makes my heart rate increase. It takes every ounce of willpower I have to stay where I am. My mom follows behind her, and I realize they each are holding a basket of clothes on their hips. They're going to the stream behind our house to wash them, and almost unconsciously, I follow behind. She kneels on the ground on the bank, pulling out a shirt. I watch as she dunks it in the water, scrubbing at it vigorously. When my mom does it, I can see her muscles flex in her arms, but Shayna is so thin and frail, I worry how hard this must be for her. Coming closer, I call out, "Shayna!" Her head turns toward me, and for the first time, a smile spreads across her face upon seeing me. I remember how much it stung when she would frown or fall silent when I arrived, and it makes sense why it hurt so much. Now my heart soars as if daring me to defy that this could be my mate. My body reacts to her every word and expression so violently. There's no denying that she holds my very soul in her palms. I have to wonder if she feels it too. Can she tell that I'm her mate? Or is she just starting to warm up to me? It feels good to know she actually doesn't hate me, no matter the reason. I'd been worried we would never build a bond, and I was desperate to. Shayna climbs to her feet as I approach, her eyes alight with excitement, and for a split second I think about taking her face in my hands and kissing her. I stop myself a few feet away so that I'm forced to use self-control. I still feel her pull with all the distance between us. "Kazhir, why aren't you at work?" I shrug, nearly blurting out that work is nowhere near as important as her. Provide for her echoes through my head, and I consider that maybe I won't completely shirk my duties today. "I don't have to be in so early," I tell her instead. My mother pauses in her work, her head turning slowly toward me. I can see the curiosity sparkling in her eyes, but I don't have time to care if I'm being obvious or making a fool of myself. "Let me help you," I tell Shayna, pulling the basket toward me. Out of the corner of my eyes, I see my mother hold back a laugh, and I scowl. I shouldn't let my mate suffer, right? So, why is my mom laughing at my efforts? Chapter 11. Kazhir. I wash clothes next to Shayna, though I am not as adept at it. This isn't the kind of work I usually do. So I watch Shayna and mimic her movements. She scrubs the clothes vigorously, so I do the same. I dunk the pants I have in my hands into the river, and in my haste I dunk with a little too much enthusiasm. Shayna giggles when water splashes onto my face. When I turn to her, she looks downward to hide her expression. "Would you like some help, Kazhir?" my mother asks. I hear the amusement in her voice. I shake my head, refusing to concede defeat. "Okay, son." I continue my efforts, working on the pair of pants I had in my hands. Scrubbing isn't any easier. The movements of my hands cause water to move left and right, falling all over me. I don't understand how Shayna is basically dry except for her hands. I am doing exactly what she is, yet I am dripping wet. It is tricky, but by the time I am done, the pants are clean. I hold them up, successful. My mother looks over at my work. "It looks like you two have this taken care of." My mother stands up, wiping her wet hands on her apron. "I'm going to go inside and help your father." I see her secret smile, though. I don't know if it's for my childlike pride in my washwork or something else. My mother heads back into the house, leaving me and Laura alone. I would never have guessed that clothes washing was such a difficult task. I always appreciated the work my mother does, but I have a newfound appreciation after failing so miserably myself. I watch as Shayna wrings out the shirt she is washing. She twists it tight until it barely drips. I copy her movements, but my technique is not as good as her because I end up with a puddle of water in my lap. It's then I realize I stupidly held the cloth over myself and not the river. Shayna's laughter explodes at my failed attempt. I look over at her. She is holding her side as she tries to calm herself. I'm not about to be the only stupid looking on here. Shayna is too distracted with her laughter to see my incoming attack. I hit the water with my tail, and water jumps up and gets her square in the face. Shayna flinches as the water hits her face. It cuts off her giggles, and she looks positively shocked. I let out a deep chuckle, satisfied with myself. Suddenly, water falls on top of my head, and I see Shayna scurrying away. My victory is short-lived given Shayna's counterattack. She took advantage of the fact that I was laughing, amused with myself. I commend her battle skills, but I will not take things sitting down. I use my tail again, but Shayna has clearly learned her lesson. She dodges, the water missing her. But she didn't account for my hand hitting the river surface at the same time. Water splashes into her back, dripping down my back. "That was a dirty trick!" she gasps. "All is fair in love and war," I counter. We stare at one another, waiting for the other to make the next move. Her hair hangs around her face, water droplets falling off the ends. My eyes study her face, her body. This game is a good excuse to really look at her. She's really quite beautiful. Even in that cage, I could tell. But with that smile on her face and energy in her bones, she looks so alive. I resist the urge to reach out and touch her. While she has grown more accustomed to me, I know that Shayna won't get over her trauma so quickly. So, I resign myself to enjoying our play. I haven't played like this since I was a child. The innocence of childhood had long left me replaced by the burdens of adulthood. I worked and worked since I was a teenager with few rests in between. The only time I took a break was when I visited my parents in the capital. Those were short and rare. My injury actually gave me the chance to step away for a little bit. While I had felt like a burden to my parents when they came to watch over me, I appreciated the time we got to and still get to spend as a family. Shayna was also giving me a new outlook on life. I could be more carefree and relax more often. Life isn't meant to be spent toiling away until death. I'm broken out of my reverie when Shayna shifts her weight. I can tell she's about to make a break for the river. She's ahead of me by a second, but I quickly catch up, jumping into the river seconds after her. We start throwing water at one another, any strategy we had previously going out the window. It's an all-out war. I've never felt like this with anyone else. This lighthearted. I love my parents and enjoy the time we all spend together, but Shayna brings out another side of me. I wasn't looking for a mate when I found her. but this feeling is telling me that we are meant to be with one another. My feelings for her grow stronger every second we spend together. What worries me is having to tell her. She is a human, and I don't know how much she knows about these kinds of things. But I'm not going to ruin such a joyous moment with negative thoughts. I stay in this carefree moment between Shayna and myself. Shayna and I continue to splash one another when, all of a sudden, she falls into the water. My entire body tenses, and I rush over to her. Shayna! She doesn't respond to me, yelling her name. I scoop her out of the water so she doesn't drown. It's then that I notice there is blood on the rock. I check her head and see a sizable gash. This isn't good. She's been getting stronger, but she's still so small and frail. I don't know if something like this will hurt her more, or if she has the strength of body to recover. I jump out of the river and rush home. Mom! Dad! I yell for my parents until they rush out. Both of them run out the doors and approach. Kazhir, what's wrong? My mother asks. She sees Shayna in my arms and gasps. What happened? We were standing in the river, and she slipped and hit her head on a rock. The words come out rushed as I try to explain everything to my parents. My mother walks over to me and inspects Shayna's head. We need to get her inside, she says when she sees the blood. Will she be okay? If we take care of this quickly, I'm sure she will be. I trust my mom's judgment and follow my parents. She tells my father to get some water and cloth while she and I go up to Shayna's room. I place Shayna down on the bed, elevating her head. Go help your father. I don't leave immediately, standing there and helplessly looking at Shayna. Her skin is paler than usual, and her eyes are still closed. My heart pounds as I wonder if she'll wake up again. Kazhir! My mom's voice breaks me out of my thoughts. Go help your father. Call the healer. I will take care of Shayna up here. She will be okay, son. I nod and finally leave the room. I cannot collapse into myself. I need to be there for Shayna. She needs me, and I'm not going to let her down. Rosenfire. Our family holds great weight and power in Orthani, and yet I hear whispers.
Do you think he can take him?
There is no way that this could happen.
No, more books. I can't remain locked in this ivory tower a moment longer.
She's perfect. The Baron's daughter must be found.
Julius, we shouldn't.
Why shouldn't we?
I am not a full dark elf. I do not possess their ethereal beauty. How will I find a mate?
The lowly Baron's son apparently has shown that he has the same gift of fire-wielding as I, if not stronger.
I am the family's dirty little secret. I am not the future of the family. Dukan is.
This world was created from a seed of evil.
I propose we take Dukan out of the picture, permanently.
Please, let me go.
If you want to join the poor humans who are bought and sold in the markets on a daily basis, you will find a way to get there.
I am free, and I am terrified.
You will never escape me.
I can try.
You will fail. Get seasons 1 and 2 of the Dark Elf series from worldsofprotheka.com.
Protheka's magic is eternal. This series will show you why.
Chapter 12. Kazhir. The healer arrives not too much later. I stand in the room as she inspects Shayna. My mother had cleaned Shayna's wound and bandaged it, stopping the bleeding. She should be fine. Luckily, the wound isn't too deep. If she doesn't wake up by tomorrow, then call me again. The healer gives me some herbs in case Shayna wakes up in pain and then leaves. I place the herbs on the bedside table and sit down in the chair in the room. My mother peeks her head in. How is she? The healer says she is going to be okay. My mother nods. Take care of yourself too, Kazhir. She leaves without saying much else. I'm too wrapped up in watching Shayna to think about what my mother means by her words. I am not the one who got hurt today. Shayna is. It's a wake-up call for me. It would be so easy for Shayna to slip out of my grasp. She is so fragile. And it's not just that. There are so many other things that could happen. What if she doesn't want to stay? Shayna doesn't know how I feel about her. There isn't anything really keeping Shayna with me. I want Shayna to stay with me because she wants to be with me. I have to lay claim to her and not let her get away from me. But I can't push her. I have a feeling if I told Shayna what I want her to say, she would say yes. But I don't know if she'd say yes because she wants or because of some sense of duty. I want Shayna to know she isn't a slave anymore, and any decision she makes is hers to make alone. She seems to be on the way, but I can't say if she's fully there yet. I just need to be patient with her. She doesn't know what mates are, and even if she did, she might not feel the same way about me. In fact, she probably doesn't. We'd been together for such a short amount of time. It is unlikely her feelings are as strong as mine. I love Shayna as a mate for life. I can't expect her to feel the same way. It does hurt to think about what to do if Shayna rejects me. I softly caress her face, my heart hurting. Shayna's eyes open as my hand touches her cheek. I go to remove my hand, but Shayna lightly brushes her fingers against the back of my palm. "Hey," she says softly, smiling weakly. I remove my hand from her face, placing it by my side. Shayna starts moving, trying to sit up. "Wait, don't move too much." Shayna looks at me, confused, but lies back down. "Why?" I tell Shayna what happened. Her fall, hitting her head, the healer. "Oh, wow. Our water fight got intense, huh?" She jokes. I want to be able to joke around with her and return to that light-hearted feeling from before. But all of my doubts are weighing me down. "Yeah. Is everything okay?" Shayna's eyes search mine. I don't plan on confessing to her, but as we stare at one another, the less I want to put the whole thing off. What will it help? Keeping my feelings to myself. Even if Shayna doesn't want it, I don't want to have any regrets. "Shayna, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" I look at her for a few more seconds and then just blurt it out. "I like you. A lot." You like me?" Shayna looks completely shocked. My heart is pounding so hard that I think it's going to explode out of my chest, but I want to get out my entire piece. If Shayna wants nothing to do with me, I will just have to accept it, but I need her to know everything in my heart. "I do. These past few days with you have shown me that something from my life has been missing. I thought I was content with the way things were. Sometimes I would look at my parents and want what they have, but it wasn't something I was actively looking for. The mate bond my parents have was my guiding force. I knew I would never accept anything less than the love they share with one another, but a true mate is hard to find. I want a true mate. I want a happy family, but they always felt like a faraway dream. But then I met Shayna, and it all seems possible. I know this is a lot for me to tell you, but I want to be there for you for the rest of my life. I want to be the one to take care of you, provide for you, protect you. I know there are things I can't protect Shayna from, but if I lay claim to her, no one in Nagaland can challenge it. Being someone's mate comes with certain privileges. If she was another Naga, I might not feel as much urgency. But she is a human in Nagaland. There are so many tragedies that can befall her. There are some I can keep away from her if we remain friends, but there are certain practices that I cannot challenge if she is not my mate. I want to give Shayna the best chances of surviving Nagaland, and not just surviving, but I want her to thrive here. And I want her to thrive with me. She's blossomed over the past few weeks, and I know it will only get better. I don't think she's a weak woman. For Shayna to survive being enslaved for so long required a mental fortitude that many do not possess, but I never want her to ever go through something so abhorrent ever again. Shayna, I believe you are my mate, and as my mate, there is a connection I have to you. I will do anything and everything for you, not only to keep you safe, but to make sure you are happy." Shayna still looks surprised. She plays with her fingers nervously. I want to know what is going through her head. Is she surprised because she didn't think I could feel this way for a human? Or is she hiding her lack of feeling for me? But what I want to know most is if she feels the same way towards me. I don't ask her that, though. I know I need to be patient with her. It hurts to not know, but I plan on respecting Shayna in whatever space and time she needs. I smile, gently grabbing her hand and kissing the back of it. I hope this is okay to do. There had been light touches between us before. My confession potentially changes things moving forward. I should be more cognizant of that, but I am weak in front of her. Shayna swallows and nods. I let out a relieved sigh. While I don't have an answer, we are going in the right direction. You don't have to answer right now. I'll give you some time to yourself to rest and think. I stand up and start to leave, but then Shayna grabs my hand. Her grip isn't strong, but her touch is enough to knock me over. I take a deep breath, but don't turn around. Her fingers squeeze my palms as she says my name. Kazhir. I close my eyes, taken over by the intensity of the moment. While I don't know exactly what is about to happen, I have a feeling that my world is about to change for the better. After years of loneliness, I could be on my way to what I had been dreaming about for as long as I could remember. I take a deep breath. I hope that Shayna's next words are the ones I want to hear. The ones that will tell me that our future will be together.
Chapter 13. Shayna. I watch as Kazhir's eyes light up as he turns back around. Hope is written plainly across his face, and it makes my heart pound harder. How was I so scared of how I felt when he feels the same? How can he not see how much I care about him? It's so sweet and cute that he wants me that way, and it only warms my heart more. He is the first person to treat me right. He confessed his feelings to me, and hit me hard because no one has ever done that to me before. No one has ever cared enough about me to have feelings, really. Everyone I had met before, my masters, the servants, even other slaves, treated me as if I wasn't worth the dirt they walked on. I was the smallest creature, less than an ant. Kazhir is the first one that has ever considered, I am not that. I can be more with him. How could I not like someone so different from everyone else? How could I not love someone with such a bigger heart and kind soul? Tears gather in my eyes as I'm overwhelmed with emotion, and I stop them as they start to track down my cheeks. Kazhir leaps back to me, catching on with his clawed tip. "Shayna!" "I love you," I blurt out, though the sobs muffle my words. "What?" His expression is so tender and nervous that it almost breaks my heart. "I love you, Kazhir. You are the only one who has ever shown me kindness. You are greater than anyone I've ever met, more compassionate than I thought possible. I couldn't believe I met someone like you, and it's only made me fall for you." I push up to look at him, reaching out toward him, and he comes closer. "I want to be with you," I whisper, the distance between us rapidly disappearing. I'm going to fight for him, I realise. For the first time in my life, I want to pursue something that I want bravely. I've always been timid and scared. It's kept me back from getting what I want, but I won't let it this time. "I love you," he whispers back, catching my face in his hands. "Gods, I'm so glad you want me." "Only you," I whisper as I raise up to meet him.
Sorry for the interruption. I know you were gearing up for a steamy scene, but it's way too hot for YouTube.
If we want to keep sharing our stories for free, we have to abide by YouTube's guidelines.
To get the full unabridged audiobook, go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Browse through unabridged audiobooks, countless ebooks and bundles offered at a discount.
If the thought of me whispering all the dirty details into your ear isn't enticing enough, use discount code YouTube30 to get 30% off of all digital products.
Story after story, audiobook after audiobook, the Worlds of Protheka are waiting for you.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
But unabridged, it's unforgettable.
Chapter 14, Kazhir. I knock on Shayna's door, excitement fluttering in my stomach. Things have really changed between us since I confessed my feelings to her 2 weeks ago, and when the door swings open, a huge smile spreads across my face. My heart leaps as she gives me a sheepish grin. Hey! I lean in closer. Hey, come in. I follow her into her room. She's grown so comfortable with me that we spend almost every night in each other's rooms, talking and laughing, sometimes kissing, but I always stop us short of screw because I don't want to hurt her. I've noticed that her stutter has become rare, and now, when we talk, it makes me that much more excited. I can see such a huge difference now compared to when we first met. You look lovely, I tell her, and her face flushes. I found her a gorgeous deep blue dress that hugs her body in a way that makes my blood boil. I'm itching to take her to the bed, pushed up against the wall, but I resist the urge. Thank you, she throws me a smile. I wanted to look nice for the party. I bite back the comment about how she's going to look more beautiful than the people we are celebrating, and offer her my arm. She takes it, and we start our short walk up to Gemma and Uza's house. Today is their wedding anniversary, and Gemma personally invited us, specifically Shayna. I think I'm just a consolation prize at this point now that they are friends. As soon as we arrive, she leaves my side, and I grin as I watch her say hello to a few Naga soldiers she's come to know. She sweeps Gemma up into a hug, and it makes my heart soar to see how happy and comfortable he is around all these people. Gemma and Uza introduce her to some of their other friends, and she doesn't shy away as she shakes hands and greets people. I'm impressed with how well she's doing. She's so different from when I first met her, where she would shy away from everyone and everything she didn't know. She would tremble just from someone's glance. At this party, she's commanding the attention of the room, and she deserves it. She's gorgeous, especially as she laughs at someone's joke and talks to the small circle around her and Gemma. No matter where she is, though, her eyes always drift back to me, just as mine do for hers. We keep the other in sight so that we can check in. Yes, and I find myself admiring her for most of the night, ignoring those around me. I go to her, but just as I get to her side, ready to ask her to go home because I want her all to myself, Uza steps up to the center of the room. People part around him, giving him space, and he smiles as silence falls over the room. We want to thank you all for coming, he announces, looking around at his guests. We really enjoyed celebrating our anniversary with our closest friends. His eyes scan the crowd, and when they land on Gemma, he holds his hand out. She makes her way to his side, taking his hand and leaning into him. She's smiling so big that I wonder what's about to happen. We have one more big announcement, Uza continues. I'm pregnant, Gemma shouts and cheers erupt. Uza throws her a narrowed glance, but it's playful. She laughs and gives him a fake pout, and she shakes her head at him. My heart is still pounding from their words, and I can hear all the questions in my head echoing around me. So many other Naga are wondering the same thing I am. How is this possible? I don't care much about how it is as long as it is a possibility for me. I thought after discovering that Shayna is my mate, I wouldn't be able to have children. Now I see that we have the opportunity to have a family. I know there's no guarantee, but as I look at Shayna, who is rushing at Gemma to wrap her in a crushing hug, I wonder if we could have kids, if she's like that. As soon as she turns around, her gaze locks on me. I can see it there, the excitement and longing. She must want them too, and even though we are excited for our friends, we just got great news ourselves. I move towards Shayna and Gemma. Congratulations, I tell her, over the loud conversation crowding around the couple. That is so exciting. Thanks, Gemma shouts back, then whispers in Shayna's ear. They both giggle, and I give them a mean stare. They're a pair, Uza says behind me, and I turn to him. Oh yes, always up to something. I clap him on the shoulder. Congratulations, you're going to be a father. He nods. I am. I've never been more thrilled in my life. I beam at them as other people sweep in to congratulate them, and I have to forcibly pull Shayna away for the night. I think if Uza and I would allow, the two would just live together. Let's go home, I tell her as we go toward the door. She throws one last glance over her shoulder and sighs. Okay, I guess it is getting late. I roll my eyes at her. I'm sorry, but you'll have to deal with just having me, no Gemma, for a little while. She crosses her arms across her chest, pressing her bosom together, and I have to avert my eyes. I can feel my manhood start to stir, and I try to ignore it. I think you're just jealous of how close we are. Yes, I tell her with a chuckle. I am. I know that if Gemma could wear Uza down, she'd get you all to herself. We both laugh, and she doesn't even correct me as we walk into the house. All the lights are off, so we fall silent. My parents must be asleep. I walk with her to her door, and she opens it, turning around to look at me. We try not to stay up too late together so we can both still work, and we were already out pretty late at the party. It's probably best for me to go to bed, but Shayna looks so beautiful in that dress, the moonlight shining on her silky hair through the window. I lean against her doorframe, looking down at her, even as my brain is signaling alarms. I need to leave. I need to go to my room before I give in to my desires. I'm terrified of hurting Shayna, and I don't want to make any mistakes just because I'm a little horny. But can I really spend all of my life denying myself my mate? Probably not, but I'll figure out a solution for that later. Good night, Shayna, I tell her. I'm about to turn away when she shakes her head, walking up to me and pushing up on her toes so that she can wrap her arms around my neck. Her eyes are so bright. My gaze keeps flicking down to her parted lips, desperate to taste her. My resolve is slowly breaking, and as she pulls me down to her, I give in. I let her lips meet mine, and I know instantly that I won't be able to hold myself back tonight. Not as her lips part and she invites me. Not as she pulls me tight against her, and my hands grab at her hips, jerking her flush to my body. I can't imagine stopping as she pulls me into her room and I kick the door shut behind us. The bed is against the far wall, and that feels like an agonizing walk, so instead I pick Shayna up. I press her back up against the door and let myself go, devouring her. No, there will be no stopping tonight.
Chapter 15, Shayna.
As much as Samara and I want to finish what these two characters have started, it looks like this chapter is about to get too hot for YouTube to handle.
Unfortunately, we have to pause here because their guidelines won't allow us to reveal the spiciest details.
To keep bringing you these free audiobooks, we have to follow their rules.
But don't worry. You can experience the full unabridged version over at worldsofprotheka.com, where the boundaries of passion and fantasy collide.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off any of our unabridged audiobooks set in the rich and immersive worlds of Protheka.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
With these scenes, it will be unforgettable. Chapter 16, Kazhir. When I stir the next morning, I can feel something warm beside me. It takes my sleepy brain a while to kick on and remember that it's Shayna. I could get used to this, I think to myself. I wrap my arms around her. We're both on our sides, and I slide a little closer to enjoy the feel of her. It doesn't take long before something down there starts to wake up as well. Apparently, I was enjoying the feel of her a little too much. I open my eyes to watch her for a few moments. She's sleeping so peacefully that I hate to disturb her. I try to ignore my growing hardness, persistent for attention as it may be. This scene is about to get too steamy for YouTube's comfort, and as much as we'd love to keep going, there guidelines say we need to stop here.
To continue releasing these free audiobooks on this platform, we've got to play by the rules.
The passion doesn't end here.
Visit worldsofprotheka.com to hear the full, uncut version of this fantasy romance, and every daring moment that YouTube can't handle.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off unabridged audiobooks in the Worlds of Protheka.
Don't let YouTube hold you back. Immerse yourself in a world of magic, danger, and unfiltered passion.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
Listen unabridged and you'll never want to go back.
Finally, I break the quiet reverie. You know, we're not going to be able to keep this a secret from my parents for long. Not that I want to, I add hurriedly. I mean, do you want to? I'm surprised by the way that it sounds, coming out of me. Almost needy, like I'm desperate to claim her as mine. I never thought I'd feel that way for anyone. I can feel Shayna wiggle a little against me, squirming uncomfortably. It makes my heart speed up, an anxious drum that beats into my throat. Is she really going to reject me, after a night like the one we just had? She doesn't in so many words, but she does clear her throat carefully. I don't want to hide from your parents. They've done so much for me, it feels wrong. There's an unspoken but that lingers at the end of her words. I can feel it, and I start to pull my arm out from underneath her so that I can look her in the face. I've propped myself up on one arm, gazing down at her. But? I finally ask, trying to make the question as soft as possible. I don't want to demand anything from her. Her face is strange, a blend of hesitation, fear, and worry. It pricks my heart, and I frown a little. Do you want kids someday? She asks unexpectedly. My eyes go wide in surprise. If we can, I reply slowly. I like kids, I admit, and Gemma and Uza were able to, so it might be an option for us. She closes her eyes, but her face still looks cloudy. Do you not want kids? I ask quietly. Is that the problem? Shayna shakes her head no, her brown hair fanning out across the bed. It's not that. I can't help but notice as her stutter starts up, and I gently reach one hand to cup her chin. Turning her to face me, I softly say, Shayna, it's me. You can tell me, what's the matter? She bites at her lip but opens her eyes to meet my gaze. She looks so sad, and I'm having a hard time understanding where this went wrong. Taking a deep breath, she explains, You're so kind to me, and I want to give you anything that you will want, but I just feel like I'm not ready. I need to heal inside before I can be good enough for you, for a family. She winces at the end, closing her eyes again. I lean over and kiss her nose tenderly. Her face lights up, surprised but pleased by the intimate gesture. Shayna looks up at me wordlessly, waiting for my explanation. Shayna, I begin slowly. You are good enough. But I understand if you have things to work through. All I want is for you to be happy. I'll wait, and we can take things as slow as you need to. A shy smile steals over her face, and the clouds disappear. She searches my gaze for a moment. Realizing that I mean it, her smile grows wider. I stand up from the bed, tugging her arm. But it's time for breakfast. So do we tell my parents or not? She slides across the bed to stand beside me. Yes, she declares resolutely, giving me a small kiss on the lips. I bend over, handing her various articles of clothing so that she can dress for breakfast. As I slip my shirt back on, I pretend to frown at her. It all looked better on the floor, I tease. She giggles and the warmth of it spreads through me. After breakfast, she tells me. I growl playfully, pulling her close for another kiss. When we finally make it out to the kitchen, my mother looks up from the stove to greet us. About time, she declares jokingly. Then her eyes narrow at our intertwined hands. I can hear my father suck in a breath. Shayna squeezes my hand tight, and her already pale face blanches. I'm surprised by how my own nerves are suddenly on edge. I can feel a cool sweat breaking out on my forehead. But I have to be strong for Shayna, I know. Resolutely I declare to them both. Yes, Shayna and I are together now. We're taking things slow, but we're very happy with each other. I jut my jaw forward as if daring them to question our decision. The spoon in my mother's hand clatters to the floor, then she calmly bends over to pick it up. It's about time, she retorts. What? I ask in confusion. It's been obvious to us for days now, my father chimes in. Your mother keeps asking me when she can start calling Shayna her daughter for real. My mother flings a piece of bread at my father. Marcello, she scolds. They just said they were taking it slow. Don't scare her off already. Shayna's face is now a lovely shade of crimson, and she's looking down at her feet. Still, the smile on her face that she's holding back tells me that she's pleased. Would you, really want me for your daughter? Shayna asks in a tiny, shocked voice, still not looking up. My father laughs. Would she? My mother shoots him a dirty look. Then she slides over to Shayna with a plate of food in her hand. Of course, I would. I mean, you practically are already, but we can wait a bit to make it official, I suppose. I'm not that old yet. Now eat, she concludes, thrusting the plate at her. Kazhir, you can fix your own plate. I turn to Shayna with mock astonishment. How do you like that? I demand. They like you better than their own son. She giggles again. It's the sweetest sound I've ever heard.
Chapter 17. Shayna. Ugh, I exclaim, wrinkling my nose in disgust. I hold the jar away from my body, as if I can keep the smell away. Then I flush, looking at Luyaula sheepishly. She just smiles. I know, it's unpleasant. It's very effective for silver, though. Just a dab on the cloth will do. I nod. As long as I don't keep the jar too close to my nose, it's bearable. I set the cleaner down on the table and lightly dip the rag inside. There's still an odour, but it's easy enough to ignore. I quickly go to work cleaning the silver as Luyaula instructed. As I work, my mind begins to wander. It's been 5 days since Kazhir and I first expressed our interest in each other. Everything is going so well that it's almost hard to believe it could be real. I don't regret asking him to take it slow. I know that if I commit to him too readily, he might feel trapped. I want him to be sure that I'm the one for him, and we already live together. If I go head over heels for him and push too fast, it would be hard for him to get out if he has second thoughts. I'd rather him be certain, totally certain, before I really put myself all the way into a relationship. Plus, this is all just so new for me. I've never had a romantic relationship before, never been treated this well. What if I screw it up? What if he decides I'm not good enough for him? It's terrifying, really, to put your whole life in someone else's hands like this. It's even harder when you're someone like me. Someone who has never had a choice but to leave their life in other people's hands. People who aren't so trustworthy, people who played with it like a toy. I know Kazhir isn't like that, but it keeps me up at night sometimes, worrying. I love him deeply, which only makes it harder. I don't want to mess this up. It's a precious gift, and I'm afraid that I won't know what to do with it. I've never had anything this special, never known anyone like him before. Are you okay? Luyaula asks, peering at me. I jump. I didn't hear her come so close. Yes, I quickly say, my heart still racing. I give myself a minute to calm down, then continue. I was daydreaming, I guess. She smiles a little, to herself, but says nothing more. I know that she thinks I was daydreaming about Kazhir. I guess she's technically right, but not anywhere near as romantic as she thinks. It's a good reminder for me anyway, to not dwell on the bad things. There's plenty of things to love about Kazhir, and I should focus on them. If I obsess too much about the negative, it can only suck the life out of the beautiful relationship that we share. And I'm so lucky that he understands my concerns. He's so patient and tender, and just lets me move forward on my own time. Sometimes it feels like all of my suffering at least blessed me for this, somehow. She slides away, her dusting cloth in one hand, and starts to wipe down a bookshelf. I shake my head, trying to concentrate and focus again on the silver. Just then, there's a knock at the door. She glides away to see who it is, and I continue polishing. As soon as she opens the door, I hear loud voices. I set everything down on the table, emptying my hands. I begin to stand uneasily from the chair, not sure what I should do. I don't even know who it is, and I know it's just my old trauma reacting. But they sound forceful, and a lump of anxiety rises in my throat. I grip the edge of the table, my knuckles turning white. I start to look around the room, instinctively searching for somewhere to flee. Just then, 3 Naga soldiers in uniform enter the living room. Lu Yaola leads them in, but she looks uncertain. "Now what is this about?" she demands. My head is spinning, and I look to Lu Yaola. My first thought is that something happened to Kazhir, and I can feel that I'm spiralling into a meltdown at just the thought. It's at that moment that it really hits me, that I love him in a devastatingly powerful way. But Lu Yaola is calm, even if her brow is furrowed. I take a few deep breaths and try not to panic. Unfortunately, I've already missed the beginning of the soldier's explanation. I shake my head, trying to focus. To solve our reproduction problem, the new policy requires us to gather all the human females in Nagaland who are without mates. The king has sent for more humans from outside the territory as well. They'll all be assigned a Naga mate within a week. "But why humans?" Lu Yaola persists. "I have a M-mate," I interject. The soldier ignores me completely. The king suspects they may be easier to breed with. As you know, it takes a long time and is very difficult for 2 Naga to have a child, and most families only have 1. But Gemma got pregnant quickly with Uzar, and she's carrying twins. Lu Yaola looks impressed. "Twins?" she practically gasps. "I've never heard of anyone having twins." Then her face falls, and she looks at me in horror. The expression begins to drive home for me what is happening. "No!" I cry out. I already have a mermate. I have Kazhir. Just let me stay here," I plead. "It doesn't work like that," Lu Yaola says slowly. Her eyes are full of sympathy as she continues. "Mating in Nagaland is a structured event. The Naga males claim who they want as a mate. Then they fight to see who wins, so that the strongest genes are passed on to the children." "Marchialo fought for you?" I ask in surprise. It's hard for me to picture that. They're so tender with each other. "Well, we're true mates," she offers. "I don't know exactly what that means. True mates are bonded for life, but that has to be approved as well." Then approve it?" I stammer. She shakes her head sadly. "You'll have to go with them to the king for now," she says. "We'll send Kazhir so that hopefully he can claim you as his mate." My head is spinning. What if Kazhir can't claim me? What if I have to go with another Naga? I start to sob, even though I know it's no use. The soldiers look at me impassively, unmoved by my tears. Lu Yaola at least responds. She wraps an arm around me tenderly, and I lean my head against her shoulder. I continue to cry the entire time as she walks me slowly to the door. She finally lets go of me outside the carriage that waits outside. The soldiers grab my arms roughly, forcing me in. "Take it easy on her," Lu Yaola snaps, knowing how hard it is for me to be handled like that. They do seem to at least temper their aggression at her reprimand. I turn to look at the house that was starting to feel like such a pleasant home. With one hand pressed to the glass, I take it all in. I wonder if it is the last time that I will see it. Lu Yaola is still standing in the grass outside. Her eyes are pinched and dark, but she tries to square her shoulders anyway. "We'll send Kazhir for you," she promises, yelling so that I can hear her. The carriage begins to move forward, and soon Lu Yaola is just a speck in the background. I've done this same routine enough times to doubt that she's ever coming back. But this was such a nice life for once. Feeling helpless, I slump against the wall of the carriage and continue to cry.
Chapter 18. Kazhir. They took her! Nolza shouts as he bursts into the tent. I'm in the middle of briefing some soldiers, but I stop abruptly at the unexpected interruption. His sudden appearance throws me completely off. What is Nolza doing here? He's an old friend of mine, but he has no business here while I'm working. He's not one of my men. I set the papers in my hand down on a makeshift table and turn to him. To who? I ask, thoroughly confused. Shayna, he pants breathlessly. They came for Shayna. My blood runs cold. Any trace of humor is gone from my expression. Dismissed, I bark quickly at the men. They scurry for the door, in no small part thanks to the way I'm pushing them out. As soon as we're alone, I whip around to face him. Who came for Shayna? What is going on? He's still trying to catch his breath, his hands resting on his knees as he hunches down. Soldiers came, by order of the king. I saw them knocking at the door and snuck over to see what was going on. I was listening at the window. Nolza stands upright, pacing anxiously. They think that human women can get pregnant easier than the Naga women can because of Gemma. So they rounded up the few women in the territory and had a bunch shipped in. They're going to mate them all off, including Shayna. She had to go see the king. I feel dizzy and sick. How can they mate Shayna to someone else? She's supposed to be my mate. My mouth and stomach feel like there's an acid inside me, eating away. It burns through me, but it isn't enough to distract from the ringing in my ears. Everything around me has crashed down with Nolza's words. There's only one thought that manages to scream louder than the rest, breaking its way through my fevered brain. I have to go get her. I turn to bolt out of the tent, and it barely registers that Nolza follows right behind me. We race as quickly as we can back to my house. I slam the door open and run through the house. My parents are waiting in the living room. My mother is sitting on the couch, and her face looks tight and drawn. My father is holding her hand to offer comfort. As soon as I enter the room, she looks up at me guiltily. There was nothing I could do, she begins, and her eyes plead for me to understand. They want all the human women to mate with someone within a week. They're all going to the castle so that the Naga men can pick their mates. Why would they force the humans to do that? The Naga women are perfectly capable of mating the way that we always have. Because the humans seem to get pregnant faster and easier than we do. Gemma's carrying twins, and humans can have more pregnancies than us in their lifetime. If they start using human women, it can fix our population crisis with multiple births. I can barely understand what she is even saying. I just want Shayna back. I can't let them force her into this, being used as an instrument of breeding. If she's going to have anyone's children, I want it to be mine, and I want her to do it happily. This is a nightmare, even by Naga standards. I haven't seen the carriage leave yet, my mom says. They were in the woods. Hurry. Maybe you can catch them. I leave my parents and Nolza behind, racing as quickly as I can into the woods. It doesn't take me long to find them, as soldiers are still standing around preparing to depart. They check over the carriage and bark orders to each other, but I don't care about that. I want Shayna. My eyes dart into the carriage, landing on her. Her eyes are red and tear-stained, which I can see from even a distance away. I rush forward, but the soldiers quickly block me from getting inside. Instead, I move to the window. She leans her head against the glass, one hand pressed against it. You can't take her from me! I shout at them. I don't want to mate with anyone else, Kazhir, she sobs. Take me as your mate so I don't have to. Please say you want me. Of course I do! I exclaim vehemently. The soldiers say you'll have to come fight for me. The strongest fighters get to pick their mates first. But what if you get there and you decide you want another human? You've never had another to pick from before. Never! I shout through the glass at her. I lift my hand to press against the pane as well, mirroring her own. Though we can't actually touch, it at least feels like we're still somehow connected. I don't want anyone but you, I reassure her. There's not a human they can find that I'd take over you. I have no doubt in my mind about this. Shayna is the only one for me. The soldiers begin to close in on me, trying to separate us. They form a tight circle, pushing in. When one grabs my arm and breaks our connection, my anger flares up. I turn, striking at him. This only stirs the rest of them up. There are more of them than there are of me, and they are armed. Though they do not draw their weapons on me yet, I quickly begin to realize that I am outmatched. I can slap them away all day, but it will never end in my favor. Still angry, I finally stop swinging, but begin to curse at them instead. The soldier who appears to be the leader looks angry now. His body is tense, with one hand on his sword. Through gritted teeth, he says, "If you want her so bad, go to the royal palace and take it up with the king. But I warn you, you continue this little stunt there, and you'll be charged with rebellion. You'll never get your mate, any mate, then." I gnash my own teeth together, furious. I know that he's right, and I feel so helpless I could scream. But instead, I turn back to Shayna. The soldiers seem to sense that I am done resisting. They watch me warily at first, and then slowly begin to back away. They begin to filter into the carriage themselves, about to depart. Now that they are distracted, and no longer watching us closely, she pushes the window open. It leaves us just enough of a gap to reach each other. She slips her delicate white hand out. I take it in both of mine. Our eyes meet, and I'm sure that my expression must match her own heartbroken one. Her beautiful amber eyes are full of unshed tears. "Wait for me," I beg her. "I'll win you back. Just don't let anyone take you first before I can. Delay it. Put them off. Do whatever it takes. Remember that I'm coming for you." The carriage begins to move before she can respond. Before I know it, she's slipping through my fingers, quite literally. There's a phantom sensation that lingers behind where I was holding her just a second ago. I watch as the carriage disappears, cursing again. This time my angry words are for me. What kind of an idiot was I to not claim her when I had the chance? I could have asked her to be my mate days ago and avoided all of this. How did I let myself lose the best thing that I ever had? No, I resolve. I haven't lost her yet. I'll go to the royal palace. I'll fight anyone and everyone that I need to. I won't let anyone else claim her. She's my mate, and pretty soon everyone will know that.
Chapter 19. Shayna. The Naga soldiers rush to the palace. The woods around us go by in a flash, and so does my hope that Kazhir will be able to save me. My heart pounds painfully as I think about him coming for me, the way he couldn't get to me because of some new law. I was so stupid to say I wanted to wait. Why didn't I take him as my mate when I could? As soon as we arrive, I'm dragged from the carriage. My arm hurts from where the Naga is squeezing, but I don't dare say anything as I'm pulled up the steps. They drop me in the foyer, shouting to someone else to take me. Before I can get my hands and feet underneath me, I'm being pulled up again, and I stumble as I try to keep up with the Naga women that are holding me. "Please," I tell. "I don't want to be here. I don't belong here." They don't respond, and I notice that they are both dressed in servant uniforms. Based on their skin, with the wrinkles and the easily mapped out spider veins, I can tell that they are both older. Is this what the Naga do with their elderly? They put them to work? What are they going to do with me then? If this is how they treat their own kind, I fear for whatever mating battle is about to happen. We burst into a massive bathroom, and my stomach flips as I see more of these Naga maids scrubbing down other human women. Some sit silently staring off into space. Others are crying and pleading with them. I watch one dart out into the hallways naked past us, and a scream tells me as soon as she's caught. I'm trembling as the women go straight for my clothes. "No!" I squeak out, jolting back. I hold onto the edge of my shirt, trying to keep my body covered. "I don't need any of this. It's just our job," one of them tells me, and they rush toward me, much faster with their tails than I can be with my two wobbly legs. I can feel the tears burning at the back of my throat. I want to cry, but I refuse to as one of the women grip my wrists and the other strips me. My face heats up at the indignation, but I step obediently into the bathtub. They swat my hands away when I try to clean myself, and all of my protests are ignored. Any time I try to keep away from them, like when they go for my lower body, they pin me down and scrub me hard. Their roughness makes my skin turn bright red, and by the time I'm out of the bath, I look as red as a rose. I'm relieved when they give me a robe, and then they start on my hair, pinning it back so it's out of my face. The braids pull at my scalp painfully, and my eyes tear up with the makeup they apply. Once they are done, I catch a glimpse of my reflection, and only then do I realise how sheer and gauzy this robe is. This whole situation makes me yearn for Kazhir, and I refuse to have anyone but him. I can't stop the maids as they pull me away, though, and bring me to another room. There will be a banquet tonight, one of them tells me. All the women and powerful Naga will be there, and the elite will handpick their mate. I shiver as nausea roils through me. We aren't being treated as mates. We are being treated as reproductive machines, collected and auctioned to whoever chooses so that they may produce an heir. I'm shoved into the room with the other girls, who are spread out across the space. I find a corner to huddle in, not interested in drawing attention to myself. Some of the girls are talking to each other, laughing or comforting each other as they cry. Some look unbothered, even bored to be here. I wonder if they are ready to get the party started. There are others that remind me of me. Thin, pale girls that need a few good meals and are covered in bruises and scars. They are hunkered down on the floor like me, their eyes wide and empty, and some are even murmuring to themselves. I wonder if they are praying, not that any of the gods or goddesses want to help us. We've been abandoned for some time now, and I don't think any of us are finding our salvation tonight. No, we are most likely just going to be used. I'm not fooled by the way they said this is a mating banquet. These Naga aren't interested in keeping any of us long-term, just like the dark elves. I know that they are trying to produce as many Naga as possible, and they most likely will toss us away after we hit our quota of children born. Until then, our bodies will be used, pumped full of a stranger's release until we conceive because they only see us as a way to use us, not as people. My thoughts drift to Kazhir. I miss him terribly. I had finally learned that I didn't have to be afraid all my life. I had come to trust him, and I didn't feel on edge around him. Now my old habits are creeping in. My ears perk up at every sound, and adrenaline pumps through my body violently until my head throbs. My mind is screaming at me to run, but my limbs are dead with trauma. I find myself begging Kazhir to find me. I know that he must be trying, that he wouldn't abandon me, and I cling to that hope. I won't give up on him, and I have to trust that he won't give up on me either. The doors fling open, and the girls fall silent. The healthier ones, the ones who are sitting in the middle of the room talking, are taken out first. The rest of us want to flee. I can see it in the others' eyes as they dart around the room, looking for an escape. I know because I do it too. We won't go willingly because we know what happens when you do. We'd rather fight and be damaged goods upon arrival, because that's better than what they have planned. I shrink back as two guards come at me, screaming. They try to grab me, and I claw at their arms, trying to loosen their grip. Nothing does, not my kicking or nails. I'm no match for them, and I know that whether I like it or not, I am going to be delivered to that banquet tonight. I try to pay attention as I'm dragged down the halls. Maybe I can get away from the banquet, and I'll make a quick escape if I know where I'm going. Every wall I pass, though, looks the same, and soon my mind is numb with the same sandstone colours. It's hopeless. Holding in the sobs, I try to ignore the pain shooting up my leg as they drag me. I can't catch my footing, and they seem insistent on not letting me regain my balance. I'm stuck at the mercy of these two, and soon I hear shouting and yelling. What am I about to be thrown into? I have a sick feeling that I know what is coming from my time in Leondor. Those noises are not foreign to me, but more born of my nightmares. My limbs start to shake violently as we approach, and I feel like I'm going to be sick. We turn corner after corner until I'm lost, and I know that even if I try to run, I'll be hopelessly confused. I'll be caught within minutes. What do I do now?
In a world of elves, demons, and liches.
What would you choose?
Power?
Or passion?
Would you stab the monster in the back?
Or take him to bed?
The immersive fantasy audiobook bundle has it all.
Go to worldsofprotheka.com to get access.
Use code YouTube30 to get an additional 30% off.
Protheka's magic is eternal. Audio bundles will make it immersive.
Chapter 20. Kazhir. My heart nearly breaks as I watch Shayna slip away. I can't keep up with the soldiers. They move much faster than me, with powerful Hokins and the best carriages. Naga are fast and powerful, with our strong tails that propel us as we run. Even someone like me, a warrior with stamina and strength, can't keep that up for long enough to make up any time on foot. Even if I went home to saddle up one of our Hokins, it would take me at least half a day, probably more, to get to the castle. I know Shayna doesn't have that kind of time, so I rack my brain, thinking of anyone that can help her. Then it hits me. I do know some of the elite Naga, one in particular who should be invited to the palace tonight. Fenroa is one of my closest friends, despite not seeing him much since I moved to the borderlands. I know he is kind and will do me a favor if I ask. I also know that I can trust Shayna alone with him until I arrive, something that I would normally worry about with almost anyone else. It makes me nervous to put her in someone else's charge. We haven't talked much in recent years, so I don't know his stance on humans, especially not taking them as mates as Uza has done. But Fenroa has always been a loyal companion. I suspect that even if he didn't care much for humans, he would do this for me. All he'd have to do is stow her away. I suspect he thinks like I do, though. He's never been hard-headed or cold-blooded like some of the Naga here. He understands treating others with respect, and he's one of the few of us that will venture into Dark Elf land. He always told me everything holds value, and I hope that he will be able to see that tonight. He will know how much Shayna means to me when he finds out she is my mate, and that kind of declaration is like a miracle in our lands. A Naga will do anything for their mate, which holds its own threat. If Fenroa doesn't protect her, he'll know that I'll come for him after if something happens to her. I won't be able to help myself, and a small part of me hopes that it will push him to do his very best by me. He's a powerful Naga noble with strong influences, so I know he can fend off anyone that tries to lay claim to my mate. He'll be able to keep her safe until I get there, and then I can claim her so that nothing like this will ever happen again. As fast as I can, I go to Uza, who is home. I know that he will be able to help me, and before explaining anything else, I write a letter, using one of his messenger birds to send it. The bird's flight is so fast, Fenroa should have the letter before Shayna even reaches the castle. "Kazhir," he tells me once I send the bird off. "Tell me what has happened. You must have heard that the king collected all the unmated humans. Uza stills. I thought he took them from the market." My mouth goes dry. He took any that he could find, and I hadn't claimed Shayna yet. His eyes soften, and I can see the heartbreak there. He knows what it would be like to lose his mate, and he understands what I am going through. "I will help you." He turns to Areko. "Have my Hokin saddled. We need to move." His assistant nods and disappears, going to get the commander's fastest mounts ready to travel the forest. I know that with Uza, I'll be much faster, but I still wouldn't be in time to save Shayna. Gemma comes out of their bedroom as we are preparing to go, and she freezes when she sees our stricken faces. What's wrong? I open my mouth to tell her, but Uza puts a hand on my chest. Wait. I look between him and his mate, refusing to break his orders. Gemma only crosses her arms, her eyes narrowing as she stares at her mate. No, tell me. Uza sighs. Promise me that you won't freak out. Uza, she warns, and I almost want to laugh. I would have if it were any other situation. The king took Shayna. Her eyes go wide and she darts forward. Oh, Kazhir, I am so sorry. Her eyes assess then, and Ereko as he comes back in. I'm going too. Saddle me a Hokeen. The commander's assistant nods, turning to do as she says. While he does that, I rush home. I need my weapons if I'm going to fight to claim my mate, and my parents are waiting for me when I arrive. My father hands me my sheathed weapons as soon as I stop inside the door. I've cleaned and sharpened them for you, he tells me. Thank you. I holster them to my waist and thighs. He hands out another item, an amulet. On the back is our family crest. Take this with you as well. It has been some time since we've seen the king, but our family holds great sway in the courts. I take it from him. I'm going to come back with her, I tell them, looking to my mother's worried face. I will protect her from anyone, and when we come back, I will have rightfully claimed her as my mate. My mother wraps me in a hug, squeezing tightly. I know you will. Bring her home. My father clasps me on the back. Travel safe and fight strong. I nod, and with my items I race back to Uza's house. I see the Hokan saddled up outside, and I rush to the empty one. Gemma offers me an empathetic smile, and Uza nods. We are ready. I am. Uza whips his reins, and his mount takes off ahead of us. I let Gemma go next and flank her just in case. I don't want anything happening to her either, and this situation has reminded me of how unsafe Nagaland is for humans. I don't feel good about this at all as we take off through the woods. I'm not sure what it is. I hate that I won't receive a letter back from Fenroa, and I just have to hope he's not away on business while I travel to the palace to save my mate. I send up a prayer to Mimir, the god of spirit and mind. I ask him to watch over Shayna, to give her the strength to make it through whatever horrors she faces until I get there. I ask him to protect her, and to keep Fenroa's mind pure when he's alone with my mate. All that's left for me to do is hope and ride. I'm just worried about what I will find when I get to the end of this journey because I refuse to lose my mate when I just found her. I will do anything to protect her, even if it means turning my back on the king and escaping our home to be together. I'll give up my entire world for Shayna. I just have to hope that she'll still be there for me to give it to.
Chapter 21. Shayna. Are you going to get a chance? The Naga in front of me asks. I don't know yet, answers the other behind me. They escort me through the halls of a large mansion. I'm not sure what they're talking about. But I think, he continues, they better let us have a taste before we feel the urge to sample the merchandise. That's when I realise they're talking about me. Things had been going so well, but now I just want to cry. I was so close to something like happiness here with Kazhir. Then the rules suddenly changed, and the rug was pulled out from under me. I shriek when the Naga behind me grabs my arse. The one in front of me turns to look and says, "Hey, I'm not getting in trouble because you can't keep your hands to yourself." We stop walking, and I realise the hallway is mostly empty. "Oh, it's not like anyone would believe her," says the one behind me. "Number, you walk in front now." I think they're going to fight for a second, but instead, they just switch places, and we continue onward. When they bring me down a hallway to a room with a large set of double doors, it's an assault on my senses. The entire place reeks of screw. I had witnessed my share of orgies when I was with the dark elves, but that felt like so long ago now. My resistance to it had waned during the intervening time. Even at my most desensitized, I still felt my skin crawl with revulsion every time. Others thought of me as naive for still being shocked when I saw others fornicating. But I couldn't help it. I still can't. Make love is one of those things that I always feel should be a private, intimate act. It's something to be treasured. And while there are obviously many people here enjoying themselves, this is all so base and debaucherous. I try to back out of the room, but the two Naga shove me forward, almost causing me to trip on the tail of another Naga, with both manhood buried in the arse of some human woman. That already seems like a lot, but when I realise there's also another Naga screwing her womanhood, I must admit I'm impressed. Making love with Kazhir was intense. I can't imagine trying something like that. Still, the woman appears to be enjoying herself as she lustfully reaches out and grabs the hand of another passing Naga. I turn away before I see where those jerks are going to go, but I have a pretty good idea from the gagging I start to hear. I shrink into the corner, trying to make myself as small as possible. I don't want to be here. I don't know if the first woman taking on two Naga actually wanted to be there or not. I knew the game from my time with the Dark Elves. Everyone in these situations takes it a little differently. There are women who seem eager to please and can act like they want it, or don't, depending on the tastes of their paramour. Some were able to pretend, some gave in, some actually seemed to enjoy it for real. I never understood them. It was easier to think of them as telling themselves a lie to survive. I wasn't looking to take that away from them, so I never dug much further. We all do what we must to survive. A shriek causes me to jerk my head up, but it turns into a cry of pleasure soon enough. I can sympathise. Barb manhoods are an experience, but certainly not one I'd want to take on if I didn't actually want to make love. I really hope that I can remain unnoticed. The enthusiasts are out there for those looking to hear someone scream about how big and virile they are. I knew a few women who took that role on, so the more reluctant among us might be spared the ordeal. I feel like I'm going to be sick. I can't shut out the sounds and, more sickeningly, the smells of sensation around me. I look around and see a few other women trying to slink off into the darkened corners of the room to avoid the lustful advances of male Naga. If there is supposed to be some sort of contest or choosing process, I can't make it out. If I could, then I might be able to make myself a less desirable choice. But it is all just desperate and needy forms, writing all around me. Off in the far side of the room is what looks like a mass of bodies, just pressed together in an obscene orgy. I can't tell if it's just that the tales make it seem more crowded, but it rivals anything I saw while I was imprisoned by the Dark Elves. Women are passed around by the Naga, and I still wonder about those who seem to be having the time of their lives being used in this way. I just can't make it make sense in my head. I was never very good at faking it, which might seem like an essential part of being a Dark Elf's sensual plaything, but it wasn't. Not for all of them, at least. I dealt with far too many Dark Elves who enjoyed my discomfort or revulsion. They fed off of it. This is all so new for the Naga that I don't know if they've found what they like yet. They have human breeding stock now. Is that going to be my whole purpose now? Probably not. If that were the case, there would be far less anal and oral screw going on around me. I tear my eyes away to look at a stage that's been set up in the centre of the room. It's hard not to look at this woman. She moves so gracefully that I can almost forget she moves for the titillation of all the Naga surrounding the stage, at least until she starts pulling her clothes off and touching herself for their enjoyment. Their eyes are glued to her hands, chest, ass, or womanhood. They don't see the vacant 1,000-yard stare that tells me not only that she'd rather be anywhere else right now, but that she's succeeded. She's somewhere else. But the men around her don't care. I envy her that ability. I always tried to go somewhere else in my head. I turn away and look at the wall. I try again to go somewhere else, to be somewhere else. But the only place I can seem to take my mind to is the past, and that's so much worse than the present. Everything the Dark Elves did to me bubbles to the surface. Even though the bruises from the unbridled sadism of those bastards have long since healed, I can still feel the hurt. It's gotten into me, deep into my bones. And I thought I'd left it behind. But alas, here I am, back in the same place. The faces have changed, but all the players are still the same. I try to think of some way out of this, but then I remember I'd done the same thing with the dark elves. Nothing ever changed. I'm stuck here, and I have to accept that I could very well die here in a situation like this. I'm stuck in hell, and here I shall remain, the only escape being the past, which is so much worse. I almost want to cling to the memory of my time with Kazhir, but part of me doesn't want to bring that into this place. If I do, then that means tainting those happy memories with the filth of this place. I don't know what to do. I can't outrun these people. I'm uncertain that I can survive this time. I just don't think I have the strength to do this all over again. Then I feel a hand land on my shoulder. I'd been so deep in my self-pity I must have missed the sounds of someone approaching. Here I am again, made to suffer. I look up into the eyes of my new tormentor. Chapter 22. Shayna. I turn to see a tall Naga dressed in fine clothes, clearly a noble. He has a friend behind him, and they are both staring down at my body unabashedly. I know they can see right through my robe, but I don't bother to try to cover myself. Instead, I focus on putting distance between us, backing up slowly. I know that if I scream, no one here will help me, so I am left on my own when it comes to getting out of this. Look at this pretty thing, the Naga on the left with green scales remarks. You have a little meat on you. And plush lips, the other one with orange scales hisses. That mouth could do some work. I fight the revulsion building inside of me as I try to back away from them. I have a mate, I tell them, their footsteps never slowing. I can't do this. My voice trembles, but I don't care. I'm terrified, and there is no calming my pounding heart right now. Especially when my back hits the wall. That's when my heart leaps to my throat, and I know that I'm screwed, figuratively and literally. There's no denying what those men plan on doing to me as they creep closer, the eyes gleaming with sick desires. They look like the kind that enjoys when you scream. Beg us, the green-scaled one tells me. Beg us for our mercy, and we may grant it to you. My knees crack as they slam into the stone floor beneath me. It hurts, but I clench my jaw, lowering my head and telling them, please don't touch me. I have a mate, and I am only for him. It is a mistake that I'm here. One of their hands grips the hair at the back of my skull and jerks my head back. My eyes water with the pain, and I'm forced to look up at them, my face nearly buried in his crotch. That's a better view now. Hold on, the other tells him, stepping forward and running his thumb over my bottom lip. He does it so forcefully I think it's going to draw blood. Then he forces his thumb in my mouth. I try to jerk back, but he holds me in place, thrusting the tip of his claw into my mouth. He pulls it out slowly, smearing spit across my face, and when he stands up they both chuckle. Much better. I'm trapped in the corner by these two, and as their hands go to their pants, my hope balloons and pops. There is no escaping this, of escaping the horrors of Protheka, and I send up an apology to Kazhir. Something slams into the orange-scaled one, and he goes flying. The green-scaled male whips around, ready to fight his attacker, who punches him in the face. He stumbles, and I nearly duck out of the way before he crashes into the wall beside me. The male that saved me grabs my arm and pulls me to my feet. He shoves me behind him, his fangs evident as he hisses at the other two Naga. She's mine. Stay away from her. My stomach sinks. I should have known that it couldn't be that easy for me, but when he turns around, he doesn't give me that lustful look. I feel hopeful once again as I ask him, please, let me go. I have a lover, and I can't betray him. I shouldn't even be here because I do have a mate. I love him, and he loves me. Please don't hurt me. Let me go back to him. I'm ready to drop to my knees again if I need to. I'll do anything as long as it's not betraying Kazhir. The Naga only cocks his head. What's your lover's name? My voice is small, nervous. Will this hurt him in any way? I hope not as I answer, Kazhir. For the first time, his eyes travel up and down my body, and he lets out a low whistle, shaking his head. Kazhir is one lucky bitch. I'm shocked by his response, and my eyebrows pinch together as I take that in. What? He smirks a little. I know, Kazhir. I'm actually here because he asked a favour of me since I was one of the ones invited to the banquet tonight. A massive grin spreads across my face, and tears start to well in my eyes. I don't catch them as they fall. I don't care. I knew he wouldn't give up on me, and he sent someone here to protect me until he could get here. So you won't hurt me? The Naga male shakes his head. I promise to protect you until Kazhir arrives. Let's get you out of here. I'm still a little apprehensive to believe this guy, but what can he do to me in another room that he can't hear? It's more likely that he won't hurt me if we are leaving here, so I follow after him as he walks out the front doors. None of the Naga soldiers stop us or even question our presence as we pass. They just keep going. And I wonder how many of these banquets have been thrown in the palace for these Naga to be so numb to humans. In the borderlands, I was a spectacle. I was only the second human that had been out in the city, and although they were used to Gemma, they were still intrigued by me. In Leondor, I caught many people's eyes as well. I'm not sure why, but a lot of the dark elves were interested in me, and I had grown used to people staring at me. Here, though, no one seems to care about my presence, and it makes it all the less nerve-wracking as I go to the Naga's private quarters. I'm Fenroa, he tells me as he ushers me inside, slamming the door fiercely behind us. I wince, and he offers me a slightly apologetic smile. Sorry. Look, we have to make it seem like we're going at it in here, or they are going to come looking for you and demand you be used, okay? I nod, gulping, but all he does is turn around and bang against the wall. He grunts and groans violently, and then turns to jump on the bed. After a few more minutes, he calms down. Guard rotation is over, so we should be good for a few hours. He flashes me a grin, going to his desk where I see platters of food laid out. Hungry? My stomach grumbles, and I take a seat across from him. I have so many questions, but I don't know how many this guy will have the answers to. I'm still not comfortable talking to strangers like this, so I let the silence lapse. Fenroa doesn't seem to mind, eating and working on documents on his desk. I curl up in the chair, listening to the sounds in the hallways and dozing here and there. His eyes flick up to the door every time someone gets close, and I wonder if he's expecting something. Hours later, the door does fly open, and this time I see a massive Naga male that I do know. My heart leaps as Kazhir bursts in, and I jump out of my chair, rushing across the room to him. "Shayna!" he shouts, and I feel the tears start to build in my eyes. He holds his arms open, and I jump into him. He catches me, my legs locking tight around his abdomen, and I throw my arms around his neck. I'm overwhelmed at seeing my mate again, and I pull him to me, kissing him deeply.
Chapter 23. Kazhir. My feet hit the ground before the Hokin even stops moving. I stumble, almost face-planting as I take off toward the castle. My heart is pounding, and I barely even hear Uza as he shouts after me. I throw the doors open to the palace without thought, storming in. The sounds fills the halls, as does the stench, and I wrinkle my nose in disgust at the screams that seem to be bouncing off the walls. It makes me see red as I consider that that's where they were trying to throw Shayna. It's clear now, more so than it already was, that this was not merely picking a mate. They are sampling the goods first. Servants rush forward, looking between me and each other, as they determine if I should be thrown out for my behavior. I pull out the amulet my father gave me, letting the family crest swing before their eyes as I continue forward. I know my father said that our family crest holds weight in the capital, but I wasn't sure of how much until the two of them back off. Another servant, a small male with shimmering, iridescent scales, spots me, and as he starts toward me, rage starts to burn in my chest. I just want to find Shayna and make sure she's safe. The male skids to a stop before me, bowing his head. "General Kazhir?" I freeze, my eyes re-evaluating the Naga. "Yes." He lifts his head slowly to look at me. "Sir Fenroa sent me to escort you to his quarters." My heart leaps and I nod, barely concealing my eagerness. "Lead the way." I'm suddenly overjoyed that I asked Fenroa to take Shayna away from the party as we rush down the hallways. The screams grow louder, as does the stench, and fury and nausea war inside of me. She's safe, I remind myself, though it does nothing for my racing heart. "Here," the servant tells me, stepping out of my way, and I jerk open the door. My heart soars when I see her, her hair pinned up and her makeup smeared across her face. Her dress barely conceals anything, but Fenroa isn't ogling her as he works. "Shayna!" I cry out in anguish, and her face lights up as soon as she sees me. She jumps up, leaping into my arms as I run forward to catch her. I run my hands down her hair, holding her close to my body. "Are you okay?" I whisper to her. "Are you hurt?" She pulls back to look at me, shaking her head as she grins. "No. Fenroa kept me safe." I look past her to my friend, who has risen from his seat. "Thank you for this." He inclines his head. A debt for a friend is little to worry about. My eyes drift back to Shayna, and I lean my forehead in to press to hers. "Now, I will claim you as my mate. No one will ever be able to take you from me." "What are you doing?" She blinks, her eyes clouding with confusion as I untangle her limbs from me and place her on the ground. "I must fight Fenroa to have you," I tell her, and her eyes go wide. "There's no need. He's a good guy. He'll give me back to you." "No." Fenroa's voice cuts through the air with sharp precision. "He must." Shayna's body goes rigid, and I run my hand down her back. What he means is, I cut my eyes at him for the implication. It's a matter of pride among Naga. He has to prove he's worthy of you the same way I did. The same way I did. It makes me want to rage, but I swallow back. I'm not surprised that he had to protect her from some other males. Fight them, even. Fenroa laid claim to you in front of the other nobles. He can't just give you to me. I have to defeat him in order to keep you as mine. Shayna looks nervous, her hands clasped together as she stares down at the ground. I grip her chin, forcing her eyes up to mine. "Don't worry. I won't lose." Turning back to Fenroa, I tell him, "I challenge you to a fight. Tonight!" He inclines his head. "I accept your challenge. Shall we approach the king?" I want to cover Shayna's body before we go back out there, but I know she is not mine. Still, I wrap an arm around her, keeping her close to me. "Lead the way." He does, going out of his chambers and down the hallway in the opposite way of that wretched banquet until we reach the king's throne room. The guards outside evaluate us, and then their eyes slink to Shayna tucked against my side. The twin grins that creep across their faces make me pull her closer to me, and I bow up before them. They don't seem to care as they continue to sneer at me, and Fenroa intervenes before things can escalate. "We request court with the king." Their gaze flicks to him before sliding back to me. "A mating claim?" The one on the right ventures. "Yes," I hiss, my hood flaring. The guard's fangs crest his bottom lip, clearly trying to intimidate me. "This is your challenger?" he asks Fenroa, his eyes flicking toward my friend. "It is, and I have accepted. We only need the king's court to complete the challenge." The one on the left pushes open the doors, letting us into the king's throne room freely. His Majesty has already approved any mating challenges for the night. You are free to enter. Fenroa strides in before me, his tail swishing impatiently. It's the only thing that gives him away as we enter, but I'm glad to see that the guards annoyed him as much as they did me. He drops to a low bow before the king, and I come to his side, doing the same. Shayna, ever trained no matter how much I try to break it, drops to her knees, her head bent forward so far she's nearly pressed to the ground. She kneels there, and I watch her as I feel the king's gaze sweep across us. You may rise. The king's voice is gleaming with amusement, and I see it echoed there on his face as we all slowly stand. I see the banquet yielded results. I bite back my retort, wondering myself how many results will come from that disgusting party on the other side of the palace. Sir, I have challenged the Baron Fenroa to a fight to lay claim to my mate. Fenroa jerks his head. We are prepared to fight tonight. Please. The king's grin is wide and anticipatory. Claim the stage. In the center of the room, a raised platform has been brought in. On either side, there is a wall of weapons, though I ignore those, preferring the sword strapped across my back, and the daggers inside my thighs, though I doubt Fenroa can see those. Instead, I turn to Shayna, running my hands up and down her arms. Stay here, I tell her. It won't take long. She nods, but her lower lip trembles as I ascend the steps. Across from me, Fenroa climbs onto the stage after choosing a large spear. One end is flat, perfect to slam into an opponent, and as he squares up before me, our gazes lock. I'm not going easy on you, he tells me, and there is no malice in his voice. I truly have to earn my place as Shayna's mate, and he will ensure that. I won't show you any mercy. Be careful, I hear, as an echo to his words. I turn to where Shayna is trembling at the stage's edge and offer her a reassuring smile. Once we are facing each other again, I unsheathe my sword and sink back into a stance. With both of us ready, the king waves his hand, signaling the start of the fight, and with Fenroa's first move, I know he wasn't lying. He won't be holding back on me. But it won't matter. Nothing will keep me from Shayna again. Orcs. Gargoyles. Vampires. Ice monsters. Demons of the dark. These beasts seek war, destruction, and power. And there's only one thing that can tame them.
Love.
This is your chance to get the uncut and unabridged audiobook bundle.
No detail is spared.
Use discount code YouTube30 for an additional 30% off of the already discounted price.
Go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Get access to countless audiobooks and discounted bundles where I talk you through every last scene.
Protheka's magic is eternal. Audio bundles will make it immersive.
Chapter 24. Kazhir. I don't want to have to fight Fenroa, but this is a point of honor, and the rules have suddenly shifted. So we must fight. Fenroa lunges at me with his spear, and I barely have time to spin away as I draw my sword. He wasn't lying when he said that he'd show no mercy. That was a strike meant to kill. I'm not 100% sure he doesn't plan on making this to the death. Though death before dishonor has been a long-standing tradition in many Naga households, his included. I don't want to actually end his life, but I want Shayna more. I'll try not to kill him, but it isn't my priority. His next jab comes in, and I'm much more prepared this time. Bat the spear away with my sword and try to get inside his reach. Spears are great at range, but close up, they're much too cumbersome. Unfortunately, he's prepared for that and backs away quickly, holding me back with the sharp-pointed tip of the spear. One of the significant disadvantages of fighting a friend is that they know your moves. I have no problem getting very close in combat, and he's worked that into his fighting strategy. Every time I try to get nearer, he spins away and strikes out, forcing me back. I try to filter out the crowd, to tune out everything else but the fight before me. Unfortunately, I can't seem to ignore every time Shayna gasps or screams. She's worried I'm going to die, and I can't help but notice the way others watch her reactions. She's making it obvious she has a preferred winner in this contest. I don't know how that is going to play out, but I can't waste my time thinking about that at the moment. I have the much more immediate battle that I need to focus on. Finroa switches quickly from defensive to offensive, thrusting his spear forward. I could block the blow entirely with my own blade, but the longer this battle goes on, the more likely I am to make a mistake. So I only turn away from it, letting the edge of his spear blade slash my arm. I'm used to battle wounds, so I don't even flinch, but instead use the opportunity to finally get inside his spear reach and slash my sword across his chest. I could have gone for his belly, but I don't want to spill his guts on the ground. Just need him to be injured enough he can't fight. But I regret my mercy almost instantly when I feel the blade of the dagger he had hidden in a thigh strap bite into my gut. I should have expected he might have another weapon on him. I'd come in similarly prepared. I stumble back, the blade sliding out of me, and I can feel my blood starting to flow. This bastard. I understand he has to defend his honor, but gut wounds are a nasty bit of business, and I need to end this fight. I give up on trying to let a good friend walk out of this relatively unscathed. He tries to press his advantage and use my backward motion for another spear strike. I block the blow with my sword and spin into him, slamming my tail into his side. In one fluid motion, I let my sword drop and grab the spear, using my momentum and his surprise to wrench it from his grasp. Continuing my spin, I turn the spear back on him, slashing it across his belly this time. It was the right move strategically and the best way to conserve my movement. Still, I can't deny a certain level of satisfaction in having given him a gut wound to contend with. When he dips to grab for the sword, I drop to the ground. I smash the butt of the spear into his outstretched hand, and I swear I hear something snap. I force him back to the edge of the ring, and then he makes a wild dash to get inside my reach with the dagger that still drips with my blood. But now it's my turn to step back and keep him at spear length. The wound in my stomach is making that hard. I'm not sure how bad it is, but it certainly doesn't tickle. This could go very poorly, very quickly, if I don't end this fast. He manages to slip past the spearhead. I don't have the time to reach for my own knife before he cuts me across the chest, deep enough that I'm sure he's hit bone. I unleash my claws and rake them up his belly, catching the wound I already put there. He falters and then stumbles back. With the opening presented, I jam the spearhead into the flesh of his thigh, but I spare him and strike for the outside. The cut forces him to his knees, but he'll live if he doesn't get stupid. If I aimed for the inside, I would have severed a major artery, and he would have bled out in moments. I place the blade of the spear against his throat. "Do you yield?" I ask. He looks up at me and smiles. "I yield. You've more than earned her," he shouts loud enough for the crowd to hear. "It is done," says the king, and the crowd hushes reverently. Are there any others that would seek to claim this woman as theirs? No one makes a sound except for the sigh of relief from Shayna. The king smacks his fist on the arm of his chair, counting out 1, 2, 3, pausing between each count. No one makes a sound. I turn to look at Shayna, and tears shine in her eyes. "Since it appears," the king starts to say, but then I see Shayna's face twist into a pained expression as she stares over my shoulder. "I rise to the challenge," a voice behind me interrupts the king. I turn to see the Naga who chose to challenge me for Shayna. His green scales stretch over thick muscle, and my heart sinks when I see a face I recognize. Ignore. Ignore is a fearsome warrior who I fought beside in battle against the orcs. We are allies, but not friends like Finroa and I. He wouldn't be doing this to maintain a sense of honor or to save face. This man actually wants Shayna for himself, and I suddenly worry he might take her. Finroa gives me a worried glance. I can read his apology in his eyes, but if there were any mistakes, he clears them up by mouthing, "I'm sorry," as he limps off the stage. Had he expected anyone to actually challenge me, I think Finroa might have left me with a bit more strength to fight, especially if he knew I'd be taking on someone like Ignore. I'm already feeling lightheaded from the blood loss, and every cut and bruise is screaming at me now to stop. The wound in my stomach is the worst of it, and I know that I don't have much left in me for another fight. Ignore knows that. It's why he challenged me. He wants a mate, but he's not willing to risk taking me on in my prime. He let someone else weaken me first. If I had even a day to rest, I'd have a better chance. But before the king can say a word, or before I can ask to staunch the flow of blood or even just retrieve my sword from the ground, Ignore charges into the ring. He runs at me, his battle axe raised up above his head, ready to cut me in two. Shayna screams, and I leap into battle.
Chapter 25. Shayna. I thought we were done with this. I scream when Kazhir barely has enough time to turn around and try to fight back. This newcomer is enormous. I hear members of the crowd screaming, "Ignore," over and over, and guess that must be his name. Ignore is massive, and I can see where Kazhir's wounds are already bleeding freely, and the way his arms drop like he's having trouble holding up his weapon. This just seems so unfair. The king and Ignore didn't even give him time to recover from one fight before throwing him into another. I want to object, to say how unfair it is to expect him to fight immediately after his first battle. But it's pointless. I'm not a person here. I'm property. My voice is meaningless. It still makes no sense. It seems like this would reward whoever just waits until everyone else is beaten down. That isn't a test of bravery or skill. It's more like a test of cowardice. But that's not something I can say out loud. I have no one around I can even complain to. I'm all alone, and I'm looking at the very real possibility of having the one Naga that I wanted to be with slain in front of me. Part of me wants to turn away from the fight. I don't want to see Kazhir get killed, but I can't tear my eyes off of it. I don't know why I'm compelled to watch. Maybe it's because of the way I feel about him that the thought of him dying is tragic. But the idea of it going unacknowledged by me is more so. Kazhir manages to sidestep a downward swing of Ignore's axe, and the blade buries itself in the sandy ground. Unfortunately, it's not deep enough for the earth to hold on to the axe blade, and Ignore easily hefts it again. But the motion was slow enough for Kazhir to strike out at his opponent. Or at least so I thought, until I see Ignore swing his axe up and cleave the spearhead clear off the shaft, leaving Kazhir holding nothing but a short, slightly pointed stick. I can't believe the number of people cheering in the crowd. They don't seem to care that Kazhir could die. Or maybe that's what they want. I can't wrap my brain around it. Why would they want to cheer for the guy who came in after his opponent was weakened? I look around and see a few horrified faces in the crowd. At least some of the people seem to get that this is wrong. Though they, unfortunately, don't appear upset enough by it to do anything. No one moves. They don't even object all that loudly. I've learned how highly some Naga think of themselves, and they seem incredibly cowardly here. Ignore's a coward for only deciding to fight Kazhir after he'd been injured and was coming down from the adrenaline rush of combat. But the biggest cowards are those in the crowd who can obviously see what's going on, but decide to do nothing. I frantically look around for something I can do to help, but I can't slip free and enter the arena. I'm truly powerless to stop this. Ignore takes another swing with his axe, and this time Kazhir catches the handle of the weapon, stopping the blow from cutting him in two. But I can hear the spear handle splintering. It can't last much longer. Kazhir's sword still rests on the ground where he dropped it. When I look back up, I meet his eyes, and I can see his fierce determination burning in them. When I look back down at the sword, he just nods. I have no idea what that's meant to convey. Does he mean he knows the sword is there and just can't reach it? Or am I supposed to wrestle past the guards and bring it to him? Ignore wrenches the axe downwards, tearing the piece of spear handle from Kazhir's grasp. When his eyes fall to the sword again, Kazhir notices and laughs. "You think you can make it into another weapon? I'd like to see you try," he says before taking another swing at Kazhir. My one hope at a halfway decent life among the Naga steps towards the blade, but Ignore circles around and swings with his axe. A bright gash of blood appears across Kazhir's chest, and I scream out. For a second I expect to see Kazhir fall dead to the ground, but I'm shocked to see him still standing. The gash from shoulder to hip gushes blood, and I can see Kazhir swaying slightly. I'm going to watch him die. He might still be upright, but he can't last much longer like this. He's lost too much blood, and he's unarmed. I feel like I'm going to be sick. I know one thing for certain. If Ignore ever makes the mistake of falling asleep in my presence, I'm going to kill him. It would be a useless bit of rebellion that would end in my death. But I can't think of life with someone like him. Someone who isn't Kazhir. I get brief flashes of the life I could have had with Kazhir. It would have been something more than just the best of a bad situation. For all the awful things that had brought me here, I was actually starting to be happy with him. And now that's gone. If I have to die to avenge him, I'll do it. There is no other choice. Ignore sees Kazhir's strength flagging and decides to press his advantage, always keeping himself between Kazhir and the sword on the ground. They circle each other, and Ignore is getting more and more confident, coming in closer and closer, pushing Kazhir farther and farther away from his weapon, farther and farther away from me. The end is drawing close, and tears well up in my eyes. I am going to have to watch Kazhir die for some stupid, arbitrary rule. It's cruel and pointless, and there is nothing I can do about it but curse the gods for their callous and capricious natures. They are at the edge of the ring, on the side farthest from me, when Ignore laughs and raises his axe high above his head. "Say good!" But Ignore never gets to finish his taunt. Lightning quick, Kazhir draws 2 daggers from scabbards hidden on his thighs and thrusts them upward, slipping between Ignore's ribs in twin swift motions. I can't see his face, but I can imagine the shocked expression. His axe falls from his hands, landing on his tail, just one final indignity before Kazhir sidesteps and lets his body fall against the railing separating the fight from the crowd. Then he looks up at me. This time, when the king asks for any other challenges, I nearly scream when one Naga attempts to slide forward out of the crowd. But I see some of the Naga who look horrified before grabbing his shoulder and holding him back. "Seeing no further challengers, Kazhir has won," announces the king. The guards around me relax. I vault over the railing and dash across the blood-soaked sand to Kazhir. I toss my arms around his neck, caring not for the mess he is, just knowing that I have to hold him and make sure that he is real, that this is real. With the way he lifts me into his arms, I don't know if it's a surge of adrenaline from victory or that his weakness at the end was entirely feigned, but he seems fine. When our lips meet, I briefly hear the cheering from the crowd before all the rest of the world melts away, and all that exists is Kazhir and I and our mingling lips. From the depths of the darkness of Protheka,
Or clawing up from the realms of fantasy.
come the most fearsome beasts you have ever seen.
These monsters are done watching from the shadows.
Now, as they step into the light, something unexpected grips them.
Something even they can't fight off.
Love,
Vampires.
demons,
Dark elves.
gods.
Minotaurs. Creatures of light and dark.
They will protect their mates.
Do whatever needs to be done.
Morally grey heroes who will burn the world to protect the women who love them.
10 audiobooks.
Fall into over 60 hours of fantasy romance.
20 ebooks.
Over 1 million words of these brutes who will protect their women.
Even if they might destroy themselves in the process.
Get the immersive Protheka fantasy romance bundle.
For 80% off, right now, dive into Protheka at a once-in-a-lifetime discount.
The first bundle to offer both ebooks and audiobooks on worldsofprotheka.com. Protheka's magic is eternal, and this romantasy bundle will make it endless.
Chapter 26. Kazhir. Sorry for the interruption. I know you were gearing up for a steamy scene, but it's way too hot for YouTube.
If we want to keep sharing our stories for free, we have to abide by YouTube's guidelines.
To get the full unabridged audiobook, go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Browse through unabridged audiobooks, countless ebooks, and bundles offered at a discount.
If the thought of me whispering all the dirty details into your ear isn't enticing enough, use discount code YouTube30 to get 30% off of all digital products.
Story after story, audiobook after audiobook, the Worlds of Protheka are waiting for you.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
But unabridged, it's unforgettable.
I don't know which room is mine, but I know the area, she tells me. Give me directions or I will break down every door until I find an empty room. Her blush starts to creep back up her cheeks. Go to the left, she whispers, and I start off that way, my tail pushing me emphatically to speed me up. I nearly blow past the next turn, and Shayna has to fight to keep her laughter in. She's still squirming my arms, but more to see because I keep crushing her to my chest than anything else. I can't help it. I nearly lost her, and I don't think I'll ever forget the feeling of terror that tore through me as I watched them take her away. There is no way that I will ever let anyone come between us. And as the king said, anyone who tries will be at my mercy. I'm usually known as merciful, but I doubt I'll be feeling that way if anyone tries to hurt Shayna again. Though the space of time we were separated was short, it was also gut-wrenching. It affirmed things in me that I needed brought to attention, and I now see what's important in my life. I've always tried to put Shayna first, to make her comfortable, and in doing that, I put her at risk. As much as I love her and hate the way things are in this world, we still live on Protheka. She will never be safe here, and I was not doing the most for her by ignoring that. I've grown comfortable with Uza ruling our borderlands, and especially with him having a human mate. I forgot for a while what can be at stake for her. But I will not make that mistake again. I know now, more than ever, what will happen if I let my guard down, and I feel more secure knowing that she is my mate. That doesn't mean I'll relax, though. I'll never let the consequences sneak up on us again.
Chapter 27, Shayna.
As much as Samara and I want to finish what these two characters have started, it looks like this chapter is about to get too hot for YouTube to handle.
Unfortunately, we have to pause here because their guidelines won't allow us to reveal the spiciest details.
To keep bringing you these free audiobooks, we have to follow their rules.
But don't worry. You can experience the full unabridged version over at worldsofprotheka.com, where the boundaries of passion and fantasy collide.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off any of our unabridged audiobooks set in the rich and immersive worlds of Protheka.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
With these scenes, it will be unforgettable. Chapter 28. Kazhir. While I've already won Shayna as my mate, I want to make it official. She's my true mate, and I've learned my lesson about leaving that to chance. I've already requested a meeting with the king. I won't leave here until I get to plead my case in front of him, but I don't think that should be much of a problem. The king is good about holding court regularly and tending to the problems and requests of his citizens. It's simply a matter of waiting until my name comes to the top of the list. It happens 3 days later when one of the courtiers knocks on the door of our bedchamber. I answer to receive the summons, and he informs me that I'm on the day's agenda. Council begins in an hour. This gives me enough time to quickly dress and prepare Shayna for our meeting. When we're ready to depart, I collect my parents, who came to meet us 2 days prior as well. As we all walk down the long corridor to the grand room, I explain to Shayna exactly what is about to happen. I'll do the speaking, I inform her, knowing that she's still quite shy about talking in front of strangers. The king himself, I'm sure, is someone she would rather not have to plead a case for. Her face looks nervous, but she visibly relaxes slightly at my words. My mother links her arm through Shayna's as if to buoy her up. I reach behind me to squeeze Shayna's hand quickly. We'll have to wait in line, I tell her. He schedules a certain number of meetings a day, but you have to wait to be called for your audience. Slow down, my mother reprimands me. I clench my teeth, anxious to join the line so that we aren't stuck at the end. But I do as she asks. When we get to the line of people waiting in the hall, I'm relieved to see that we aren't too late. There's a few before us, mostly male Nagas with bags that I assume contain money. They're probably here to pay the king his share of profit from their land, a task that rarely takes long. Now that we have nothing to do but wait, I turn my attention to Shayna. She's trying to take in the opulent decorations and art in the hall, but somehow, I doubt she's really seeing any of it. She still looks anxious, and I wrap my arms around her consolingly. This draws the attention of those waiting beside us, but I don't care. We're never going to blend in, not as a Naga mating with a human. We might as well get used to it. My mother puffs up her shoulders indignantly, her eyes shooting daggers at anyone who dares to give us a questioning look. It's enough to embarrass the other Naga, who uneasily shift their gaze away. I rub Shayna's back lightly as the line moves forward, and before long we're standing before the doors of the grand room. The same courtier as earlier is waiting outside the door. I give him my name, and he marks something down off a paper in his hands. The heavy brass doors of the grand room swing open. A male Naga, having just concluded his meeting with the king, slithers out. 2 guards on either side of the door nod, and the courtier calls us forward. Taking Shayna's hand in mine, I lead her through the doors and into the grand room. My parents follow behind us. The grand room is truly as grand as the title would suggest. It's one of the fanciest places in the palace, where the king meets ordinary Naga citizens, entertains royals, and even makes dealings with other rulers in Protheka as necessary. Even Shayna takes a moment to forget to be shy, looking around in wide-eyed wonder at the ornamental carved wood pillars and gilded gold decor. We cross the large open floor past an audience of the king's advisors, courtiers, and other nobles. Finally, we reach the king, seated on his throne on a small platform. We all bow before him, as is customary. Shayna mimics my mother. "Speak your name," says the king. "Kazhir, general in the borderlands, your highness." The king looks up at us for the first time, thinking it over. "Ah, yes. You won the girl as your mate. Is there a problem?" "Your highness, I'm here to make a formal request to have Shayna as my true mate for life, according to our traditions and customs." He glances over at my parents. "How do you feel?" "Nothing would make us happier, your majesty," my father replies. "Shayna's a welcome addition to our family," my mother agrees. The king cocks his head to one side as if thinking it over. "We're promoting the mating of humans and Naga as a method for population growth. My only concern is that if we mate the human with you, and you alone, we won't get as many offspring. Agree that you'll see to it that Nagaland gets lots of children out of the deal, and I have no objection." Shayna flushes a bright red and ducks her head to look at her feet. "Your Majesty, it is my every intention of fulfilling my necessary obligations for a large family," I tease slyly. The meaning is not lost on the king, who chuckles. "Well, good," he agrees easily. "You're still young enough to recognize your priorities, I see." He stands up from his seat and faces us formally. Clearing his throat, he declares, "Yes, I grant you permission to claim the human as your true mate. Shayna, you say?" I nod my agreement, and he nods back. "Shayna, by my royal decree, I confer the status of citizen of the borderlands unto you. You're eligible, within law and custom, to be Kazhir's true mate." A smile splits across my face, and I glance at Shayna. She's beaming as well, though still blushing with embarrassment at being the center of attention. I want to cheer wildly, but I know it's inappropriate for the setting. Instead, the 4 of us all bow again and offer our thanks. When we get out of the grand room and back into the hall, I sweep Shayna into my arms and give her a forceful kiss. Shayna, my true mate. Of all the things I've ever desired in my life, none of them ever felt quite as perfect, as fated as this. We returned to the borderlands early the next day. Word has already spread of our upcoming mating ceremony, and Gemma is ready with a big party to celebrate. It's a fun, light-hearted affair with our close friends and family. Everyone is happy for us simply because we're happy. They're our friends, and they back us in whatever we choose to do. Still, there's something affirming about having Gemma and Uza there to support us. They're the only ones who can really understand that, while humans mating with Naga isn't tradition, sometimes true love rises beyond what you ever expected. Shayna and I walk around, socializing with all our guests who came to wish us well. I still do most of the talking. Shayna has come a long way since we first met, but she still prefers listening. Gemma leans over a table to put out more snacks, and she has to adjust herself around her pregnant belly. It makes me think of the royal order from the king, to have lots of children. I glance over at Shayna beside me, who is watching Gemma with a small smile on her face. Our eyes meet, and I know that she's thinking the same thing. Not only is our love something neither of us expected, but there's plenty of it to share with a large brood of children someday. I reach out for her hand, which she gives me willingly. She says nothing, just squeezes it gently. Her amber eyes radiate happiness at me, surely mirroring my own. I can't help but kiss her in front of everyone, even though she blushes again when people start to cheer.
Chapter 29. Shayna. Pick a stone, Luyaula instructs, holding out a small bag. I peer inside and she pulls it away. No peeking, she lectures gently. She offers the bag once more. I close my eyes and try again. When my fingers close around something round and smooth, I pull it out. I hold it out in the palm of my hand, and she takes it from me. You can open your eyes now, she declares. I do and see her looking at the small stone intently. I lean over to see what it is. There's a small symbol painted on it, which resembles a bug of some kind. I look up at her expectantly, still not really sure what's happening. Luyaula looks pleased and returns the stone to the bag. You picked abundance and fertility, she announces. It's a good sign. This is an old Nagaland custom, she explains. I blink a few times. Oh, I reply. Well, that's good, right? She smiles. Oh yes, it's very good. I'm glad you didn't pick Journey. I want you and Kazhir to stay close to us. Of course, Mom, I answer. Since Kazhir asked the king's permission to mate with me 2 months ago, Luyaula and Marcello both had me begin calling them Mom and Dad. It was a bit hard to get used to at first, but I like it. They're the only family that I have, and I think that makes me appreciate finally finding them even more. We're not going anywhere without you, I declare resolutely. She turns away to set the bag down on a nearby table. Even though I can't see her face, I hear her sniffle just a little. She lifts a hand to brush under her eye, then turns back to me with another big smile. Let's finish getting you ready, she announces. Today is my mating ceremony with Kazhir. It's just our close friends and family, held in the yard at Kazhir's home. I'm already wearing a dress that Luyaula had made for me, similar to the traditional Naga mating garb. She picks up a few ribbons and begins to thread them into my hair as she braids. Each colour is symbolic. The yellow ribbon is for happiness, the white ribbon is for faithfulness, blue stands for loyalty, and so on. When she's done, she moves over to my bedroom window to look outside. It looks like it might be about time, she says. Don't forget your sachet. I pick up a long, threaded necklace, which holds a small pouch of floral herbs at the end. I slip it over my neck, then follow her out of the room and outside. Our guests are all waiting for the ceremony to begin. Kazhir is standing beside the shaman. I start to walk toward him, but Luyaula grabs my elbow first. I stop and turn to her, and she embraces me tightly. "Welcome to the family," she says. Marcello is walking toward us both, and he hurries to be the next one to hug me. "We're proud to have you," he adds. My eyes well with tears, but I try to hold them in. I don't want to cry yet, not in front of all these people. Instead, I duck my head and hurry to join Kazhir. We face each other, holding hands. The informal start to the ceremony has all of our guests laying flowers at our feet. Once everyone has done so, they return to their seats in silence. The shaman begins to speak, going through the ritualized words and motions. At the end, he takes the sachet off me. Then he pulls the herbs out, crushes some between his fingers, and rubs it across my forehead. He does the same to Kazhir, then sprinkles the rest over our heads. The tears that have been lingering in my eyes begin to fall now. The ceremony is so moving I can't help it. Kazhir uses his thumb to brush them away, then leans forward to kiss me. Our audience cheers, which marks the official end of the ceremony. We're true mates now, together for life. The reception is held outdoors as well. Large tables are set up to accommodate our guests, with plenty of chairs. One big table at the front of the room holds assorted foods and snacks, arranged buffet style. A small circular table sits off by itself, isolated by still in view of everything. This is where Kazhir and I will sit. It's loaded down with all the flowers from the ceremony earlier and looks stunning. Kazhir gives a quick speech, thanking everyone for coming. He's about to ask the shaman to say a prayer before the meal when I surprise him by standing up. I'd like to say a few words. I'm trying hard not to stutter, something I've nearly completely outgrown. Still, in front of all these people, it's hard not to get a little tongue-tied. Kazhir looks at me in surprise, and I know that he's just caught off guard that I'm speaking publicly like this. But he nods his head and sits down to let me talk. I take a deep breath, then gaze around at the crowd of people. A sea of eyes looks back at me expectantly, and I feel my stomach clench. But then a wave of calm spreads through me, taking its place. I see our friends, like Gemma and Uza. I see Nolza, who ran to get Kazhir when I was taken by the king. I see Kazhir's parents, my parents now. I have nothing to be afraid of. These are our friends, and they love us. I never expected that I could end up here today, not just as a human mating with a Naga, but finding love at all. I grew up as a lonely orphan, never daring to dream that there was something better for me somewhere. I glance over at Kazhir, who is watching me warmly. I'm so glad that I ended up here in Nagaland. The place, it turns out, I was meant to be. Here with Kazhir, and with all of you. Thank you for letting me have a part in your lives. I turn to face Luciaula and Marcello. Thank you, Mum and Dad, for making room for me in your family. Maybe soon we'll be as blessed as Gemma and Uza, and we'll all be making room for our family to grow again. The crowd cheers at the thought, and Luciaula and Marcello beam at me proudly. Even though I wanted to speak, I can feel my cheeks burning. I take my seat, and Kazhir leans over to whisper to me, "If you're ready for our family to grow, we can always sneak out of here and take care of that." I laughingly punch him in the arm, my face flushing even deeper. "You really think no one here would notice?" I demand. He shrugs his shoulders easily. To be honest, I don't give a damn if they notice or not. I laugh again and shake my head. Save it for tonight. "Fine," he replies, kissing me on the lips. It's a long, lingering kiss that hovers right on the edge of being immodest. "I just wanted to remind you of what you're getting tonight," he says in a low, gravelly voice. Our eyes lock for a moment, but then he stands abruptly, remembering that we have a waiting audience. "Please," he announces loudly, "once the shaman leads us in prayer, we'll all enjoy this feast together. Shaman?" As the shaman begins to recite, I try to concentrate and ignore the way Kazhir's kiss still tingles on my lips. I know that during the prayer, I should look solemn and respectful, but I feel so giddy and fulfilled. It's hard to keep in. Kazhir squeezes my knee under the table. My eyes pop open to look at him, but his face is expressionless. The prayer finally ends, and I elbow him again. "You're going to shame your family, you know that?" I scold. "Good thing they have you know to make up for it," he teases back. Good thing indeed, I think to myself.
Chapter 30. Epilogue. Share.
This scene is about to get too steamy for YouTube's comfort. And as much as we'd love to keep going, their guidelines say we need to stop here.
To continue releasing these free audiobooks on this platform, we've got to play by the rules.
The passion doesn't end here.
Visit worldsofprotheka.com to hear the full, uncut version of this fantasy romance, and every daring moment that YouTube can't handle.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off unabridged audiobooks in the Worlds of Protheka.
Don't let YouTube hold you back. Immerse yourself in a world of magic, danger, and unfiltered passion.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
Listen unabridged and you'll never want to go back.
I can feel every pair of eyes on me. It's nothing new as a prince, especially since I am third in line for the throne. I know that they are watching everything I do as I meander through the market, looking for something to interest me. That's the problem. Nothing seems to interest me anymore. I'm constantly bored, and I can't seem to find anything that will entertain me. My duties are dull. The senseless partying and screwing have grown mundane. What more is there in life? I keep going through the market, careful to keep my features in place as I go. I should appear regal, even if I feel anything but. As we come around a bend, I see a cage in the back corner. There are 2 dark elves in front of it, and I can only make a small figure crumpled to the ground against the back wall of bars. Knowing the dark elves, that's a human. I turn my nose up at the creature, continuing on. I've heard the rumors that my father is purchasing many to come to the palace, and some even say they have a good use. If I've grown tired of screwing Naga women, though, then why would I care about a human woman? Besides, the one in the cage looks pitiful. She wouldn't even be able to survive me, and unlike those dark creatures, I have no interest in breaking people. I don't care about my father's plans or how wasteful they seem to me. Nothing ever matters much anymore. I'm just looking for a way to feel something because for over a year now, I've had nothing but a deep ache inside me as I search for something more than this life has given me. I'm almost around the corner when I see someone approach the cage. It shouldn't interest me, but I've grown tired of examining the wares of these stalls, so I turn to watch the interaction. I can see from here that the male is a Naga soldier. He's highly decorated on his armor, and though I don't know the soldiers here, I can make out that he's close to the commander. He's haggling with the dark elves, gesturing to the woman and shaking his head. It's clear the dark elves are asking more than she's worth, and I wonder what he wants her for. That would determine her longevity and her price. My eyes drift to the human woman, curious to see how she's taking in her new master. She's assessing him, and though she seems a little hesitant, she doesn't look like she's going to protest. She'd rather be with a Naga than a dark elf then. Once the soldier pays, the dark elves open up the cage and pull her out. She has a chain fastened to her neck, like the pet she'll be to him, and he leads her away. The soldier is forceful, but there's something in his eyes that makes me follow. I don't care what he's going to do to this woman, and I'm not planning on intervening to keep her safe or anything. No, I go because of whatever I saw on that soldier's face. He looked determined, interested, and compassionate. It's clear that he isn't bored and complacent like me, and I want to know what he's thinking and doing next. I follow them until they think they are alone, and I watch as the soldier tries to talk to the woman. She nearly bashes her head in, and he catches her, looking at her with a gleam in his eye that I don't recognize. He places her in his carriage, and again, I see that emotion etched into his face. I've never seen anyone look like that before, and for some reason, it tugs at my heart. It's the first time I've felt something there in a way, and I continue to watch the soldier and the woman until they pull away. In the castle, everyone looks at each other with lust. We pace the time with games, drinking, and make love. And those are just simple pleasure that occupy very little of the mind. It does nothing to entice the mind or soul, and I think that's why I'm so bored. But that soldier had a look on his face that told me there was more going on with him beneath the surface. He wanted more from that woman than a slave or make love. I can't place it, even as I turn it over and over again in my mind. What was that he was feeling? Is it because she's human? Will humans bring something out in me that I thought had long gone dormant? I don't have the answer to any of these questions, and I start back to the market. As I continue to walk through it, I examine every face I pass, looking for another bright-eyed Naga. While I see plenty of animated people with greed or rage, I don't see anyone with that same look on their face. I'm accustomed to the anger, selfishness, and lust I see all around me. What I still don't understand is what the soldier was feeling. He seemed to discover the very thing I've been looking for, and I have no way to ask for my answers. I can barely even describe what I want to know. Instead, I let my feet walk. I'm no longer taking in the scenery as my mind wanders. I keep seeing his yellow eyes flash in my mind, trying to dissect whatever it was I saw. I spend all afternoon thinking about it, but when I get back in my carriage to go to the capital, I still have no answers. In the carriage, I sigh deeply. I want more out of my life, and up until today, I was hopeless that there was more. I've seen something I want now, and as everyone knows, I won't stop until I get it. Maybe it's a human woman, maybe not, but I'm going to get to the bottom of it. The only thing I know for sure is he didn't stare at the woman like a body to use like other Naga were at the market. Maybe it has something to do with that. All I know is I'm going to find out.